Chapter 1183. Uno Hanaretsu looked at the scene in front of her quietly without any emotion. There was only one thought in her mind, pity and sympathy. You guys are no match for him in terms of strength, and in terms of intelligence, you guys are even worse than Chunkuin, who seems to have the ability to predict the future. You guys are inferior to him in every aspect. I really don't understand why you guys would blindly resist. Uno Hanaretsu couldn't help but sigh in her heart. They knew it was a dead end, but they still chose to resist. Even if they were killed, they would be seeking their own death. For example, Tsumura. There are only two people I respect the most in my life. One of them is the head captain who led me to the right path. The other is Isht-sensei, who has been my friend for 100 years. If you guys really think of me as a friend, please move aside. Tsumura replied stubbornly. His Zanpakuto's words were cold and piercing. Captain Jitsumura, don't be stubborn. Soul Society is where you belong. Isht-sensei has already fallen. Shunsui Jingle tried to persuade him with a friendly tone. It was very persuasive, making people lower their guard. However, if his target was a block of wood, it would be useless no matter how eloquent he was. Jitsumura was like that. He only had Isht-sensei in his heart. Shunsui Jingle's words were ignored. In the end, you guys haven't made a move yet. As expected, this kind of thing is better left to me. Who told me to be the bad guy? Dustla stretched his waist and took a step forward, sweeping to the front of Jingle Chenshui and the others. Head captain, no matter what, Captain Takemura is our former colleague. We just need to capture him. There's no need to kill him. Remembering Wuchen's cruel method of eliminating the root of the problem, Yukitake Jushiro reminded him worriedly. It's hard to control power. It's best if Captain Jitsumura surrenders himself. If he chooses to resist, it's normal for him to lose an arm or a leg. Dustla's smile was very evil. If the previous head captain was as hot as the sun, then the Dustlas in front of him was as dark and terrifying as hell. His entire body was filled with an ominous aura. He was like a devil wearing the clothes of the god of death. The corner of his mouth and the teasing eyes, including his cynical smile, were the most realistic portrayal. Don't give me that look. Even if you're the head captain, this old man doesn't approve of you. You bastard. You are the main reason why East Deity fell into the void. When enemies saw each other, their eyes would turn red. Right now, Suojin was like this. His huge eyes turned red, and his entire body was filled with violent destructive energy waves. Tao Breaker 73, Dual Lotus Azure Flame Fall. Blazing flames swept over, raising the temperature of the surrounding air without limit, evaporating the moisture in the atmosphere. The dry feeling was nauseating and extremely uncomfortable. Destroying the environment is a big problem. As the captain, you don't even have the determination to protect Soul Society. Dustla's cheerful manner caused all of the captains to be slightly stunned, and they all lowered their heads at the same time. It wasn't without reason that he was able to become the head captain. At the very least, he had the ability to remain unfazed even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. Buzz buzz buzz, right at this moment, a ripple suddenly appeared in the void, and a vortex gradually expanded. Kamui! Dustlas shouted, and the vortex instantly expanded by more than 100 times, forming a small black hole, and the attacking Tao Breaker was suddenly sucked in. Like a stone sinking into the sea, there was no movement at all. Hateful. It's like God deliberately sent him to go against me. Suojin, who was clenching his iron fist, muttered. His big mouth full of fangs was terrifying, and his eyes were full of fear and unwillingness as he looked at Dustlas. Gritting his teeth, Suojin finally chose to release his Zanpakuto. Boom, Heaven's Wrath. Shoo shoo shoo. The sky suddenly turned dark. The captains raised their eyes and looked into the depths of the void. A giant foot was falling from the sky, and the exaggerated area was comparable to a mountain. Retreat, this is the localized heaven's wrath. Shuinsui's pupils shrank, and he quickly ordered. He took the lead to pull Jushiro Yukitake back to avoid the falling giant foot. Retreat? We, the Shinigami, have to retreat in the face of a traitor, then who will protect Soul Society? Looking at the giant foot falling from the void, Dustless whispered, and the earth cracked, and the mountains in the distance disintegrated into particles. Uchiha Flame Formation. The solid ground trembled inexplicably, like an earthquake, and then a blazing flame rose from the ground, and a red demonic luster rose from the ground, and a flame barrier tens of meters high was exposed to the air. What is that strange thing? Shunsui and the others exclaimed with their eyes wide open. When this huge barrier descended, it was as if they were in the furnace of hell, and the whole world was very hot. Boom boom. Finally, under everyone's surprised gaze, the falling giant foot kicked the flame barrier, and the flame barrier trembled violently, and it seemed like it was going to break. Most people thought that it would be a lose-lose situation, but who would have thought that the giant foot directly evaporated like water and disappeared without a trace? Between heaven and earth, only the ancient flame barrier was left, and it was filled with the ancient atmosphere. Chapter 1184. Saojin was trembling with anger. Because he was a Leakin, his hair stood on end. His face was filled with despair, unwillingness, and hatred. Why is it that the more treacherous and despicable a person is, the more powerful they are? Saojin questioned the sky. It was rare for him to complain, and his tone was desolate. What a pitiful insect. The more you stick to the rules, the weaker you are. Those who know how to take advantage of the situation, the stronger they are. Dustless turned a deaf ear to Saojin's hatred. There were at least 1,000 people who hated him. There was no need to care about them. They were just insects not worth mentioning. Those who liked to hate others were actually the most useless. Take Saojin for example. If he had the strength to kill Dustless, he wouldn't hate him. He could just kill Dustless with one slash. Out of sight, out of mind. But he couldn't, so he hated Dustless. Boom, boom, boom. Saojin didn't hold back at all. He wanted to fight to the death. Only in this way could he break through the defense of these captains. He had to save his only remaining friend in this world, Higashi-sensei. Although Arinkuen's method is despicable, this Saojin is also stubborn. He is determined to follow Sosuke Aizen. You won't be able to persuade him with just a few words. Unohana Retsu shook her head. In her eyes, Saojin was just seeking death. He didn't have enough strength, but he still wanted to show off. This kind of person would die the quickest. Dao Breaker 88, Flying Dragon Strikes the Thief. The thick beam of light was like an unsheathed divine sword, slicing the entire sky into two halves. Want to run? Dustless narrowed his eyes. He suddenly felt that Saojin was about to run. He snorted, "If you run away in front of me, I'll give you the position of head captain." Wu Qin sneered. At the same time, 6 black iron rods shot out from his hands. A hexagonal special enchantment was immediately formed, isolating the entire world and completely cutting off all contact with the outside world. 6 Crimson Suns Formation. As Dustless's voice fell, the sealed world was airtight, and there was no way out. The left side of the village was also sealed inside. The toughness of this enchantment was beyond imagination. It could even withstand the Bijadama of the 10-tailed beast without being affected. The strength of this enchantment was self-evident. There was almost no attack in this world, and any creature could leave this place. Unless it was a foreign species like the Void who could open a black chamber at will. Don't make a fool of yourself with your insignificant brilliance. Dustless's eyes were blurred by the blinding light. He simply waved his hand and extinguished it. The light beam that flew over exploded beside him, but it did not have any effect. Dustless's clothes didn't even touch Dustless's clothes. In an instant, he became a transparent person who could ignore all attacks. It was as if fireworks were casually set off in the sky. It was just for show, and the probability of it hurting someone was zero. Gulp, just as the battle was getting intense, Dustless's stomach suddenly growled. Ayaya. It seems that I have to end this quickly. It's not worth it to starve me because of you. Seoul Society's cuisine is still my favorite. Zwijn's head was full of black lines, and his hands that were holding the zanpakuto almost dropped. He stared at Dustless indignantly. He was a dignified captain, but he didn't even have the time to eat with Dustless. It was simply disdaining him and treating him as a worthless garbage. Jingle Shunshui and the others were helpless. The first thing to learn in a one-on-one battle with Dustless was not the skills, but how to prevent oneself from being angered to death. Bankai Kalasutra, King of Heaven's Wrath. The armored giant's head reached the sky, and his feet stepped on the ground. His powerful legs could crush the world, and his slender sword could kill all creatures without any effort. Watch me destroy your garbage enchantment now. Zwijn shouted after Bankai. His confidence skyrocketed, and he looked contemptuously at the enchantment that was thinner than paper. His face was full of sarcasm. Do as you wish. Dustless chuckled and looked at Zwijn playfully. He grabbed a blade of grass from nowhere and stuffed it into his mouth with a gloating expression. Bang bang bang. With just 2 steps, his huge body shook the mountains and rivers, and the earth was as fragile as paper. With a gentle step, countless cracks would appear. Clang clang clang. Zwijn pulled out his sword from the scabbard, and after gathering enough strength, he slashed at the enchantment with all his strength. Bang bang bang. He thought that the enchantment would burst in an instant, but unexpectedly, the enchantment was intact. Instead, the huge body of King of Heaven's Wrath was mercilessly bounced back and fell to the ground. The mountain behind him was smashed by him. This enchantment. What the hell is it? How can it be so extraordinary? The captains were stunned. Dustless casually threw out 6 black iron rods. They thought that it was just to buy time, but now it seems that although it was as thin as a cicada's wing, its hardness is beyond any enchantment known at present. The most unpleasant thing is that this kind of powerful enchantment seems to be only Dustless can use it. This is not fair. Chapter 1185. Dustless looked at the embarrassed Swazashi, and at the same time, he winked at the captains beside him. See, this is what happens when you overestimate yourself. Everyone, take this as a warning. The captain's expression changed slightly. In the eyes of others, this might be a joke, but in their ears, it was more like a warning and deterrence. Sai, Shunsui and Yucatec looked at each other and saw the helplessness and sadness in each other's eyes. This was a secret warning to the captains, or they might face the same fate in the future. These captains were not fools. According to Dustless's strength, he could take down Swazashi in 2 or 3 moves. Humiliating him again and again was probably a warning. Their true intentions were not in the wine, and the spearhead was directed at the group of captains. Boom boom boom. The overbearing spiritual pressure swept out, and the whole world inside the seal was shaking and could collapse at any time. The thick murderous intent locked onto Dustless. Hey, you don't have to stare at me, I won't let you out. Facing Swazashi's ferocious eyes, Dustless didn't care and smiled. No matter what, although I don't know how this barrier is made, as long as I kill you, it will naturally collapse and collapse. While talking, the giant already stood up. A pair of massive eyeballs were like copper bells, even much larger than Dustless's head. Kill me. With just you. Dustless laughed in disdain when he heard this, and he said with ridicule, there are really many people who overestimate their ability. For the sake of the so-called fetters, they They clearly know that they aren't a match for the other party, yet they insist on coming to give away their lives. Dustless gradually lost his playful mood and looked serious. Apparently, he was starting to take this seriously. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Noticing Dustless's strange state, Suizashi attacked first, and a huge blade wind swept towards Dustless. Clang clang clang. He didn't even use his Zanpakuto. Dustless directly grabbed the 10-meter-long blade with his right hand. He didn't use any tricks, he just grabbed the blade with his hand. Just how strong is his body? Even his spiritual pressure didn't work. Shunsui and the others were shocked. Although a captain should have the strength to kill a captain-level Shinigami, this scene was too exaggerated. Dustless didn't even use his spiritual pressure. TSK TSK TSK. Let's dissect it and see what it is made of. Nya Maoli sneered and thought to himself. You want to kill me with your half-baked skills? Go back home and train for a few hundred years. Grasping the huge blade of the long saber tightly, Wu Chen suddenly exerted force and threw it to the left. Under everyone's horrified gaze, the saber-wielding Zhuo Jin on the other side was naturally thrown away. All of them were thrown away by Wu Chen's tyrannical strength. Boom boom boom. His huge body slammed into a mountain in the distance, and Kalasutra's wrath was thrown more than 20 meters away. His huge body crashed into an unfortunate mountain and caused it to collapse. How much strength is needed to do that? The group of captains took a deep breath and suppressed the trembling of their bodies. Initially, they thought that although this head captain was powerful, there was a limit to measure him. Most of them thought that Wu Chen was at the same level as the previous head captain, Yamamoto Genryu Shigekuni, or even weaker than him. Now it seemed that they were wrong. Without the slightest bit of Ryatsu, head captain Yamamoto relied on his body's hardness to catch a full-strength attack from a captain with his bare hands. It was still a big question whether the old head captain Yamamoto could do it. All in all the captains were afraid of Dustless. Ow 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 ow, the roar resounded in the space inside the enchantment, and everyone's ears were stuffy. This violent tone was full of thousands of helplessness and hatred, as well as unwillingness and fear, and many other complex emotions. Looking at it, it was Suizashi with a sad expression. Do I have no choice but to surrender? Suizashi's face was full of unwillingness, but he had to admit that he was not Dustless's captain. He was as weak as a child who had not grown up. In the face of a muscular adult, he could only be beaten up. The edge of 1,000 hands can't be touched, the hand of darkness can't be reflected. Fast treasure, big wheel, the grey turret, the bow is drawn far away, and the bright light dissipates. Suizashi began a long chant, and at the end, many pink lights flew out from his hands. You are indeed the captain's student. Ordinary captains may not be able to use this Heido, but you can chant it. It is indeed worthy of praise. Dustless gave him a look of appreciation. Heido number 91 was indeed powerful. Heido number 91, 1,000 hands bright sky cannon. Countless pink lights swept over, and there was no time to dodge at all. The number was like a storm, blocking all escape routes. But with your level, you are still too weak. Let's stop here. Focusing on the incoming lights, Dustless's right eye changed. A white flower eye flashed, and his hands closed, and a huge tornado came out. Silver will reincarnation explosion. The violent wind swept out, and the attacking lights were instantly shattered. Suizashi's huge body was a rare live target, and he was completely swallowed by the tornado. Puchi! 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 Inside the tornado, a bloody scene played out. The biting cold wind turned into thousands of cold blades, mercilessly waving at Suizashi, and dismembering him in an instant. Large pieces of flesh fell on the ground, and Suizashi looked like he was being executed. The bloody scene was too horrible to look at, and even these experienced captains could not help but feel disgusted. They could not help but distance themselves from Dustless. Chapter 1186. Silver naturally saw the strange state of the captains, but he didn't care. As the head captain, he had to maintain the absolute strength that was enough to intimidate the Godii 13. It was good to let them know the difference between them. That way, there would always be idiots who overestimated themselves coming to challenge him. Ha! He can still stand up. Lycans have amazing recovery ability. Silver's tone was calm, but there was a hint of surprise. Following Dustless's gaze, Sujin stood up again. Even if his body was crushed, he still didn't give up. No, he's already at the end of his life. It's his willpower that's supporting him. How sad. Seeing this, Dustless felt a bit of sympathy for this bear. He cared about Higashi Sendai, but Higashi Sendai only cared about Sosuke Aizen. A pitiful person must have something to hate. Endless light appeared on his fingertips, and the destructive light beam locked onto Sujin. Path of Destruction, Head Captain. Not giving Dustless a chance to attack, Yukitake Jushir came forward and pleaded, although Sujin is guilty, he doesn't deserve to die. Not to mention that he has worked for Soul Society for hundreds of years. How about we put him in hell to reflect on his mistakes? Hearing this, Dustless didn't say anything. The light in his hand continued to flicker, and his cold eyes quietly observed the captains. After a few seconds, the light disappeared. Looking at Sujin's miserable appearance, even if he could recover, his combat power would be greatly reduced. After all, his Zanpakuto was crushed by Dustless. The most important thing was that this eyesore would be removed from his position as the head captain. It didn't matter if he was killed or not, as long as he left the Godii 13. Then let him go this time. Dustless pondered, and his eyes turned into Sharingan. He stared at Sujin, and the Magatama emitted a strange fluctuation. Boom! In the end, under everyone's shocked gaze, Sujin couldn't bear the burden anymore and fell to the ground. He was exhausted, and he instantly stopped his Bankai posture. Head captain, even if Sujin can be spared from death, he still has to be punished. The captain of the 2nd Division, So Fong, stepped forward and suggested, "How dare you publicly partner up with a great void? This has crossed the bottom line of Soul Society's tolerance. You will be sentenced to at least 1,000 years in prison." All the captains nodded their heads in agreement. Why don't? Shunsui and Yukitake Jushir looked at each other in dismay. The words that were about to come out of their mouths were swallowed back into their mouths. Dustless glanced at the two of them. There's no need to lock him up for so long. I believe that Captain Yamamura is loyal to Soul Society. He was just tempted by that despicable Vasto Lord and Sosuke Aizen. When Dustless mentioned Aizen Sosuke, he clenched his teeth and made a decision. That's why I've decided to spare him the death penalty this time. However, he still needs to be punished. I'll imprison him for 3 years. I hope he can turn over a new leaf. The Godii 13 will welcome him back. Buzz buzz buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, the captain lost his ability to think. He stared at Wu Qin, dumbfounded. When did this narrow-minded head captain become so generous? The group of death gods all felt that it was impossible. They immediately sized up the awe-inspiring and righteous Dustless. Everyone, Soul Society still needs everyone to work together. We have to be united in front of the enemy, Dustless said firmly. His face was full of generosity and he forgot about the grudge between him and Zhuozhen. You idiots! How can you believe such words? Dustless's face was full of righteousness, but he was laughing in his heart. The entire world might end in 3 years. He could just leave by then. Of course, there was no need to imprison Zhuozhen for so long. A few years of confinement could win over people's hearts. Everything ends here. Everyone, go back. Dustless waved his hand and said righteously. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the First Division's building. Dustless had just finished listening to the report from the 12th Division. Ever since Sosuke Aizen defected, his every move had been monitored by Soul Society. Seems like it will take some time. I can't rely on Sosuke Aizen to make King Keys. The only way is to directly invade Soul King Palace. Inside the empty team house, Wu Chen's low murmur sounded. Do you need me to go with you? Unohana asked expectantly. To be honest, she was quite curious about Soul King Palace. There's no need for that. If you go, I'll have a lot more scruples. The Zero Squad isn't anything good. For the sake of the Spirit King, they're willing to abandon everything. Even if it's their old friends, they're willing to fight. Dustless shook his head and said. Thinking of Soul King's strange appearance, he couldn't help but laugh. There was nothing good about that appearance. He was just a monster whose limbs were chopped off. What about Soul Society? The head captain's sudden departure is suspicious. Unohana said. That's even less of a problem. Didn't you see that when Mayuri looked at me, his eyes were a lot more respectful? That old man and I have yet to resolve our grudge. Dustless chuckled. After going around Zhuajin, the Godai 13's captains had changed their opinion of him. You are really despicable, Chinkuan. Unohana said in admiration. She admired Dustless's ability to win people's hearts. It wouldn't be long before Yamamoto's influence in Genryusai Shigeki disappeared. Chapter 1187. Unohana had to admit that sometimes, a soft knife was more useful than a hard knife, and the effect was even greater. Furthermore, I can leave the shadow clone in Soul Society as a cover. I can just cancel it when I'm in the captain's meeting. It's just a formality. Dustless said indifferently. Not to mention that it was impossible to find out, even if those captains found out, what could they do? What they could do was next to nothing, because Soul Society had no way to contact Spirit King Palace. The next time we meet, I will be changing my identity. Do you want to celebrate? Dustless suddenly changed the topic and smiled. Change your identity. Hearing this, Unohana was startled at first, then asked in confusion, You are changing your identity all the time. Head Captain, 7th Division Captain, 4th Division Vice Captain, and many other random identities. What are you going to change to now? That's not what I'm talking about. Dustless shook his head mysteriously. Although he had many identities, none of them were useful. You are about to invade Spirit King Palace, and you still have time to think about these random things. Unohana pouted her lips and grumbled. Could it be? Suddenly realizing something, Unohana said in surprise, the next time we meet, you won't be a Spirit King, right? Ayaya, you are so smart. Come, give me a kiss. In the mysterious space, a visible ripple appeared in the void. Although the ripple was negligible, the members of the Zero Squad who lived here were all experts among experts, so they rushed over at the first moment. 5 figures gathered here, and all of them looked at the hole in the sky in shock. What's going on? A guard from the War Master's division thought to himself. He looked at the 4 people who had confused expressions on their faces and saw that they were also confused. After a while, the ripple expanded and formed a mysterious hole. A figure walked out from it. A person. How did he enter Spirit King Palace? How is this possible? Unohana Tongxing said in disbelief. She pinched her own skin, and the pain made her realize that this was not a dream. Yo, I didn't expect everyone to be waiting for me here in advance. What an honor. A familiar voice came from the void, and the blurry figure gradually became clear. Dustless walked out with a frivolous expression and a frivolous smile. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. There was only Dustless in the sky, and 5 figures suddenly appeared and surrounded him. Wang Yu's Sanpakuto was already at Dustless's throat. Oh my, is this how the Spirit King Palace treats its guests? Completely ignoring their cold gazes, Dustless faintly glanced at the Shudora thousand-handed Maru. Pervert with a belly full of evil tricks. Seemingly having sensed Dustless's gaze, Shudora thousand-hand Maru snorted softly. Hearing this, Dustless smiled awkwardly, opened his mouth, and said straightforwardly, "If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get out of my way. To tell you the truth, I came here for Spirit King." Like a stone stirring up 1,000 ripples, these words immediately attracted 5 pairs of angry eyes. All the members of Team Zero looked at Wu Chen with rage. "You really don't want to give up, it was a mistake to let you out." A soldier of Hyoto Division said with hatred. His whole body was overflowing with cold light, and his shiny bald head was covered with a layer of cold air. "Have you forgotten about the seal I placed on your body before? You've got guts." Owa Tongxing reminded, indicating Dustless not to act rashly. "That kind of thing. Do you think it's useful? Do you think I will be afraid? If I was really afraid of Team Zero, do you think I would dare to come?" Dustless sneered contemptuously, and his left eye was swallowed by Rinsei's Sharingan, and a sudden repulsive force erupted from his body. Shinra Tensei. Caught off guard, the 5 people were easily bounced back. "Get out of my way, those who block me will die." Looking at the giant palace in front of him, Dustless stepped forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 5 figures flashed together, like an iron wall in front of Dustless, blocking his way. A soldier of Hyoto Division picked up his Sanpakuto and wrote a giant seal word out of thin air. A transparent barrier suddenly isolated the Spirit King Palace. Good ability. Seeing this, Dustless nodded and praised. Although so, his tone was extremely frivolous, obviously he didn't take it to heart. "We have fought before, you are not my opponent, let me go, don't force me to kill." Dustless's casual expression disappeared, and his murderous intent was revealed. The temperature of the space within 100 feet dropped rapidly, and his whole body was filled with dangerous fluctuations. The existence of Team Zero is to protect Spirit King. If Spirit King is dead, do you think there is any meaning for us to exist? A soldier of Hyoto Division didn't back down. He held his Sanpakuto in his hand, and not only him, but the other 4 captains also did the same. "Even you want to resist me?" Dustless's cold eyes splashed some ripples. He looked at Shudora thousand-hand Maru and said, "I will say it for the last time, I am not killing Spirit King, I am making him a part of my body. This way, I will become the new Spirit King, and Team Zero will also be liberated. You can do your own thing, no need, no." Shaking his head like a rattle drum, a soldier of Hyoto Division was extremely stubborn. "Don't talk nonsense. If you want to hurt Spirit King, you have to step over all of our bodies." The members of Team Zero were all determined. Humph. Dustless's murderous intent skyrocketed, and when he was about to use his eye power, he suddenly stopped and took out the star badge that belonged to Quincy. With a fierce smile on his face, he could use this opportunity to test Old Man Yamamoto's unique skill, Zenka no Tachi. Chapter 1188. How powerful is Zenka no Tachi? No one knew, and even if they did, they would be sent to the underworld by Yamamoto. But one thing is for sure, it's a weapon that can destroy the world. Because of its power, Yamamoto only used it once in thousands of years against Yawatch. This temperature. It's Zenka no Tachi. The members of Team Zero widened their eyes. Obviously, they are no stranger to Zenka no Tachi. I plan to take away the ability of the Captain Sanpakuto. Because of that, the captain was easily killed by Aizen Sosuke's Kyoka Suigetsu. So it was you who killed Yuan Lusai, you despicable bastard. The members of the Zero Squad glared at Wu Qin, glaring at him fiercely. I'm already dead. Even if you kill me, it's useless, not to mention that you want to skin me alive. Instead of reminiscing about head Captain Yamamoto, why don't you think about how you're going to deal with me, who has Zanka no Tachi? Wu-chan chuckled and shouted at the same time. Everything turned to ashes, Ryujin Jaka no Tachi. After saying that, a tachi wrapped in flames appeared in Dustless's hand. The moment it appeared, the temperature of the whole world rose. Everyone couldn't help but feel despair. They were terrified of Dustless's strength. This monster can fight all the Shinigami without Zanka no Tachi. Now, he's like a tiger with wings. No one in the world can be his opponent. Everyone, please don't forget the responsibility of Team Zero. Sensing Wu Chen's apocalyptic aura, a soldier from the War Master Division had no choice but to raise his voice. In particular, the relationship between Wu Chen and Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru and Saiso Tongsai made him daydream. 1,000 miles heaven palm. The enormous hand swept out rapidly, grabbing towards Dustless's entire person. Naive. Seeing this, Dustless didn't dodge. His body didn't show any signs of elementalization. He wanted to test the power of Zanka no Tachi. Dustless's surroundings were covered in flames. Fire rejection. The incoming spiritual pressure was instantly destroyed. Before it could even touch Dustless's body, it was dismembered and fused with the scorching heat. Damn it, this power, and this move is definitely flowing fire edge. Wang Yu of Ermiwu, who was known as the Saber God, said with a pale face. He really couldn't understand why the heavens were so biased towards Dustless. Could he be God's illegitimate child? Wang Yu wasn't the only one who had such a strange idea. Everyone in Team Zero had the same thought. Otherwise, how could Dustless possess so many heaven-defying abilities and a heaven-defying cheat like Ryujin Jaka? There was no doubt that God was an illegitimate child. Buzz buzz buzz, the blade of the Zanpakuto emitted a dazzling brilliance, and the endless flames began to surge, and an unprecedented heat could be felt from 100 feet away. It was as if he had been thrown into a steamer, and the entire world was scorching hot. As expected of the strongest fire element Zanpakuto. This power, if I didn't have the Jubi's characteristic to regenerate, I would have to be extremely careful when facing Captain Yamamoto. He's only one person, but there are 5 of us. We have the advantage in numbers. Don't panic, let's besiege him together. At this moment, a soldier from the Hattori division shouted. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 5 members of Team Zero divided into 5 groups and attacked from 5 directions. Their speed was extremely fast, and their attacks were extremely fierce. 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, we 5 against you, what qualifications do you have to fight with us? A soldier from the Hattori division shouted loudly. 2 fists can't beat 4 hands? That's true, but that's effective for ordinary people. This iron principle doesn't work for me. Wu Chen's line of sight suddenly moved to the toilet. Wu Chen's lips curled up into a cruel smile. The soldiers of the War Master's department who were rushing over could be seen clearly. Soldier from the Hattori division, have you ever been hit by your own move? Dustless smiled creepily, and his strange Sharingan turned, as if he could see the moves of the soldier from the Hattori division in an instant. Using my own move to attack myself? If you can do it, I will immediately bow down to you. A soldier from the Hattori division sneered, and his face was full of disbelief. The other members of Team Zero were also disdainful. If he could imitate their moves with just a casual glance, it would be too much. Is that so? Dustless ignored their disapproving expressions, and suddenly raised his palm, and a huge wave of energy flew out. Then I welcome you to be one of my subordinates, Hattori Division's first soldier, 1,000 miles heaven palm. The same big hand that the first soldier from the Hattori Division used before flew out, and the sharp edge of the hand caught the soldier in an instant, and then it clenched fiercely. Crack crack crack. The sound of a ghost head cracking could be heard, and a large amount of blood slowly dripped down, and the soldier was easily crushed into minced meat. In front of this pair of eyes, do you really think you have the power to resist? Don't be so self-righteous and laugh at me. The deafening arrogant laughter resounded in the Spirit King Palace, and the members of Team Zero were shocked speechless. The first soldier from the Hattori division was the leader of Team Zero, and he was killed so easily. Hattori division's first soldier. Wang Yu from Momia was the first to come over, and then he was surprised to find that the minced meat on the ground had reformed, and he was revived again. What a troublesome ability. Dustless saw this scene, and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. You can't kill me. The first soldier from the Hattori division smiled confidently, and then he looked at the five-color city eagerly, hoping to see Dustless's defeated face. But he was destined to be disappointed. Although your resurrection ability is heaven-defying, it is not invincible, and you need to borrow the strength of others to revive. I just need to kill everyone, and you think you can still revive. Bankai, Remnant Flame Tachi. Chapter 1189. The fire wave at the tip of the blade was restrained, as if someone had poured a basin of cold water on it, and all of it evaporated. The tip of the blade only emitted a wisp of hot steam, and the blade also changed. It was unexpectedly scorched. At the same time, the remaining water in the atmosphere gradually evaporated until nothing was left. The special space, the whole world began to collapse. Most of the white buildings in the Spirit King Palace started to crack. It can even be solved, the members of Team Zero were stunned. Even with the temperament of Soldier Division's first soldier, he was stunned. There was only one thought in his mind: Shinigami is finished. The terror of Zanken no Tachi was more useful to him than anyone else. Dye it black, Ichigo. Sensing that the water in the atmosphere was gradually evaporating, Soldier Division's first soldier didn't hesitate to release Zanpakuto. Only in this way could he barely regain some of his shattered confidence. The other members of Team Zero were no exception. They looked at each other and launched more ferocious attacks on Dustless. Hado 90's Black Coffin. The Ryatsu in his body surged. Sayako Kiryu was the first to use his ultimate move. Hado 90's edge swallowed Dustless from all directions. A mere Hado is nothing. With an arrogant smile on his face, he gently raised Zanken no Tachi and waved it gently. All the incoming attacks collapsed. Zanken no Tachi west, waning sun prison clothes, a terrifyingly high temperature rose from Wu Chen's body and enveloped his entire body. In the face of the black light that was attacking him from all directions, he merely glanced at it and ignored it. Without any defense, the black light was unstoppable. The moment it touched Dustless, they thought they could kill him. Who would have thought that the black coffin would turn into ashes in an instant? It was directly evaporated by the high temperature of 15 million degrees. Do you still have a chance of winning in my state? It's harder to get close to me. Wu Chen, who was wearing a Ryatsu coat, said. His words were full of contempt. The strength of Team Zero was just like that. They were just paper tigers. When you think they are strong, they are naturally strong. When you think they are weak, they are naturally weak. You bastard, the first soldier's face turned green. His thick beard trembled. It was clear that he was furious. This was an undeniable fact. Normal attacks would evaporate if they got close to Dustless, not to mention attacking him. That's right, although this guy is currently invincible, he's not a flawless existence. A thought flashed through his mind, and a soldier from the Weapon Master Division suddenly laughed sinisterly, looking extremely sinister. What is this old baldy planning now? Dustless frowned and asked in confusion. He had been secretly observing every move of the soldiers in the War Master's department. Even the slightest change could not escape his eyes. Dustless saw the subtle changes in her expression just now. I don't care what schemes you have. In front of absolute strength, everything is futile. Thinking of his current strength, Dustless laughed it off. This was his biggest capital, there was nothing to be afraid of. Team Zero and Spirit King were no exception. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. He raised his Dustless Remnant Fire Tachi high in the air. After seeing who attacked him, he noticed the Zanpakuto. Looking closely, Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru was controlling her countless bony arms to sweep over. The number was dense. Each bony arm contained a cold light. There was some liquid in front of it, which looked like venom. Huff, Dustless sighed slightly. He found that he couldn't kill this woman. Instead, he felt guilty. He took her chastity by force and used the space coordinates in her body to successfully invade Spirit King Palace. Even if he wanted to kill her, he couldn't raise the butcher's knife. Immediately, he shook his head secretly and threw out 6 rays of light. Bakuto number 61, 6-rod light prison. Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru's attack was stopped. She struggled to move her body but couldn't move. She suddenly found that this 6-rod light prison that could be easily broken was particularly difficult to deal with at this moment. Bastard, let go of me if you dare. Shidoro Senjumaru, who did not appreciate Wu Chen's kindness, pointed at Wu Chen and scolded, "Get out of here if you are afraid of death. The Spirit King Palace is not a place for people like you to profane." "I can't profane." "Then who can profane it?" "Wait for Yuri Habik to profane it." Dustless asked calmly. This sentence made Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru speechless. Hee hee. Finally, it's here. At this time, Wang Yu's joyful laughter came. Dustless turned his head and waved his hand. Directly, he took out a sheathless Zanpakuto from the container filled with mysterious liquid. The body of the Zanpakuto was cold. It was slender and beautiful. It was quite extraordinary. My nickname is Sword God. This Zanpakuto is called Scabbard. Because it is too sharp, there is no suitable scabbard for it. You've been talking nonsense for a long time. What do you want to say? Wu Qin said impatiently with a touch of annoyance in his tone. After being interrupted by Dustless, Wang Yu didn't get angry. He just moved his spiritual pressure and instantly appeared in front of Dustless. The wind of the Zanpakuto swept towards Dustless' face. What I want to say is, there is nothing in front of Scabbard that can't be cut, even Genryosai's Zanpakuto Tachi is no exception. Chapter 1190. What I want to say is, there is nothing that can't be cut, even Genryosai's Zanka no Tachi is no exception. The moment his voice fell, the Zanpakuto released a cold light and stabbed towards Dustless's eyes. Clang! In the blink of an eye, there was a loud roar. Wang Yu's arm that was holding the Zanpakuto trembled, and suddenly found that something blocked his attack. It doesn't matter if you can destroy Captain Yamamoto's Zanpakuto, but please be clear about one thing, I am not Captain Yamamoto. Dustless spat out cold air from his dry mouth, looked up and saw that his left arm was covered with armament hockey, and he grabbed the incoming black Zanpakuto with his bare hand. All the members of Team Zero were stunned, including Shuradora Senjumaru. Even First Soldier was no exception. He didn't doubt Nemia Wang Yu's sword-making skills at all. When this indestructible Zanpakuto was first made, Nemia Wang Yu even bragged to them that it could easily cut a Shinigami in half. But now it was caught by Dustless with his bare hand. Get lost. With a whisper, his left eye quickly turned into Tensigen, and a majestic repulsion erupted from the palm of his hand. Bang bang bang. Under the attack of the repulsion, Nemia disappeared in an instant. A soldier from the War Master's division hurriedly glanced at the others. The members of Squad Zero were puzzled, but they nodded and attacked Wu Qin ferociously in unison. However, Dustless was wearing the broken sun prison clothes, so they used Hades to attack Dustless, and it seemed that they wanted to delay time. The members of Team Zero were also afraid to get close to Dustless. The temperature of 15 million degrees was no joke. It was enough to melt and evaporate a person in an instant. Kirin Temple's Tensigan Langyu raised his palm, and the Ryatsu floated, and a majestic dragon head appeared, roaring majestically, third of Hades, Iron Wind Kill. Whiz whiz whiz. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind blew towards them. The entire Spirit King Palace was shaking. Many of the palaces floating in the void were shaking as if they were about to collapse. Not only that, the broken sun prison robe that enveloped Dustless's body was also blown away by the violent hurricane. Lipidao. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with doubt. Looking at the dragon head in Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong's hand, astonishment appeared in his eyes. This Lipidao's essence was above Pidao. Of course, it didn't mean that he was stronger than Pidao. It only represented the identity of Team Zero. Petty tricks. Dustless fearlessly faced the oncoming hurricane. He walked forward courageously. This hurricane was extremely terrifying. It was as sharp as a blade. Wherever it passed, deep cracks would appear. Raising his right arm coldly, a huge flash of light appeared and locked onto Wang Yu. Dao Breaker 88, Flying Dragon Strikes Thief, Sky-Shaking Lightning Bubble. An incomparably thick golden light whizzed out. It was like an unparalleled golden spear piercing towards Wang Yu. The sky that it swept past was distorted. This guy's attainment in Dao Breaker is so deep. The 88th Dao Breaker can actually display a power that surpasses the 90th Dao Breaker. Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong exclaimed. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. At the critical moment, a black shadow blocked in front of Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong. He directly used his thick brush and Zanpakuto to write a huge, seal word towards the sky. Boom boom boom. The flash of light blasted onto the invisible barrier, and the sharpness was immediately restrained. This damn bald monk is really troublesome. Such a convenient ability actually fell on his head. Sometimes, God is really blind. Dustless couldn't help but curse in his heart. The ability of Soldier Division's first soldier was really too convenient. However, this was just the beginning. What happened next was even more incredible. Soldier Division's first soldier wrote the word hide on Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong, and his whole person disappeared. Dustless released his majestic perception and carefully observed the changes around him, but found that even Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong's spiritual pressure did not remain. It was as if he had died completely. Using observation hockey, there was no trace of him. Don't waste your effort. This is one of my abilities. There is no need to be surprised. The Spirit King Palace has existed in the world for countless years. If it could be defeated so easily by you, it might have been trampled to the ground thousands of years ago. A soldier from the War Master's division said calmly. He was extremely confident in his own abilities, as if everything was under his control. Bang bang bang. A powerful force came from the left side without warning. Dustless, who didn't feel it, was hit hard. His abdomen caved in, and he groaned in pain. He was instantly hit and slammed into the distant wall, creating a big hole full of cracks. I didn't feel it at all. Dustless was stunned. He was sure that the person who attacked him was Qilin Temple's Tian Shilong, but he didn't feel it at all. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. I have challenged countless experts before. I didn't expect that I would stumble here. If I remember correctly, this is the first time in my life that I have been sent flying by a kick. Dustless, who stood up again, was in perfect condition. Carelessness can happen once, but it can't happen a second time. Good luck can't always accompany you. Dustless secretly used the Glint Fruit's elemental transformation ability. He had just suffered a small loss because of his carelessness, but such a good opportunity will never happen a second time. Chapter 1191. Dustless's confident words made everyone stunned, and then there was a burst of disdainful laughter. No one is an exception to my ability, you'd better surrender. A soldier of the host division laughed contemptuously, full of confidence in his own ability. You will regret it if you resist. Glancing at Dustless, a soldier of the host division appeared next to Shiro Tongsen, Shidoro Senjumaru, and others. He wrote the word hide on their bodies. Then the same scene played out. At the moment when the pen stopped, several people disappeared. Whether it was Ryatsu or smell, they couldn't be perceived. Dustless tried to use observation hockey to search for traces of several people again, and the result was the same as before. This ability is really good, even observation hockey can't find them. Dustless sighed, now in such a big world, only he and a soldier of the host division were left. Everyone else was hidden with the ability of a soldier of the host division. Boom! The light all over his body dissipated, splashing all over the ground like raindrops. Humph! Your mouth is sharp, but your body is still injured. Seeing Dustless's body split in two, a soldier of the host division sneered, Young man, there is no invincible ability in this world, you should. The words on the tip of his tongue stopped abruptly, and following the line of sight of a soldier of the host division, Dustless's body, which fell to the ground in two, floated a faint light, turned into thousands of light particles, and approached Dustless, repairing the damaged body, and in the blink of an eye, it was restored to its original state. You are right, there is no invincible ability in this world, but at least my ability is invincible to you. Dustless retorted. These words made a soldier of the host division's face turn green, ashamed and angry. His eyes quietly turned around in front of him, even if he couldn't see people. Dustless knew that the members of the Zero Squad were quietly waiting for an opportunity. Although I can't see you, it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. A wave of air spread out from the void. Dustless's words fell into everyone's ears. You can't even see the enemy. What right do you have to continue fighting? Crossing his arms in front of his chest, a soldier from the War Master's division mocked. Dustless quietly looked at the soldier commander's first soldier. He finally knew that Yawatch had chosen to forcefully dismember him in the future. This guy isn't strong. It's hard to tell who's stronger between him and head Captain Yamamoto when it comes to fighting strength. His temper is really bad. Dustless thought. At the same time, a pitch-black energy ball appeared in his hand. It was extremely dense and dangerous. The moment it appeared, the entire world was affected by an invisible energy fluctuation. Although I can't see you, but, Dustless's lips curled into a cruel smile. His eyes emitted a terrifying red light. His repressed smile made the world of the Spirit King Palace fall into a dead silence. As long as I destroy this world, they won't be spared. As soon as he finished speaking, the energy ball in Dustless's hand floated into the sky. At the same time, two opposite forces of yin and yang gathered in his palms. A moon appeared in one of his palms, and a sun appeared in the other. 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. As the powerful roar fell, everything was destroyed. The ground was shaking, and the sky was crying. The cloudless sky of the Spirit King Palace dimmed. A powerful gravitational force that could destroy the world suddenly descended. Caw caw caw. Under the influence of the boundless spiritual pressure, the Spirit King Palace collapsed instantly. Everything turned into ashes. The Spirit King Palace that had been built for nearly 1,000 years collapsed in an instant. The fragments of the buildings all floated into the sky, and the originally incomparably narrow bead instantly increased in size by 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Bastard! A soldier from the host division cursed. Perhaps Dustless couldn't see it, but he saw it clearly. The members of the Zero Squad were struggling to resist the gravitational force. Even so, their bodies were still floating up uncontrollably. Destroy that black energy ball. It should be the weak point. A soldier from the War Master Division quickly shouted as his pupils constricted. As expected of the leader of the Zero Squad. His strength is not bad, and his eyesight is so sharp. He instantly saw through the weakness of Chibaku Tensei. But what's the use? Staring at the endless attacks flying toward Chibaku Tensei, Rinnegan emitted some light. Wheel grave, border prison, suddenly, a ripple appeared in the void, and dozens of shadows flashed together. The shadows were dressed and looked the same. They were all based on the original body of Dustless. Boom boom boom. The colorful attacks exploded and turned into a violent energy shock wave that swept out. The powerful spiritual pressure was so violent that the entire world of the Spirit King Palace trembled. Are you kidding me? Why did it explode? The members of the Zero Squad were stunned at this scene. They were all shocked and frightened. Looking at the giant sphere that was constantly expanding, their minds were in a mess. Looking at the flattened Spirit King Palace, a ridiculous thought appeared in everyone's mind. The Spirit King that had lasted for tens of thousands of years was probably going to be replaced from now on. Other than that, the bodies of the Zero Squad were sucked towards the Chibaku Tensei and were gradually sealed by the Chibaku Tensei. Only Wu Qin and a soldier from the War Master Division were barely unharmed. How could the attack just now explode? A soldier from the Ho's division was stunned. The air around him was restricted, and a conspicuous seal word could be seen. You actually sealed yourself. With a touch of surprise in his eyes, Dustless directly answered, your attacks were all blocked by my shadows. Dustless explained softly as if he did something insignificant. He didn't do anything, and the shadows did nothing. They used their bodies to block the fierce attacks of the Zero Squad. Chapter 1192. The Spirit King Palace had completely collapsed, and it was a mess. The entire world was flattened, and only the palace in the middle was intact. The figure in the palace was wrapped in an unknown barrier, and it looked like a precious object that was sealed. His eyes were lifeless, and it was obvious that he had no consciousness. Dustless's pupils shrank, and he immediately said his name, Spirit King. What the hell do you want to do? The soldier commander was shocked and quickly removed the seal on his body. Looking at Dustless's eager eyes, he was terrified and quickly shouted, let me tell you, Spirit King is the symbol of Hueco Mundo and Hueco Mundo. Once he dies, everything in the world will collapse and disappear. This is not good for you. Of course not. Dustless admitted it. Spirit King was indeed very important, and the whole world would be finished without Spirit King. It's good that you understand. Hearing this, the soldier commander was relieved, thinking that Dustless was willing to let Spirit King go, and the shackles on his body immediately disappeared. But the next sentence made him feel as if he was carrying 10 mountains on his back. So, I'm not killing Spirit King, but making him a part of my body's power. It would have been better if he didn't say anything. The moment he said that, a soldier from the War Master's division rushed over in a rage. Real fight, white pen. Seeing that he was fighting alone, the soldier commander released his Zanpakuto. The so-called real fight, according to the current meaning, was Bankai. Your Zanpakuto is very dangerous. Staring at the murderous soldier commander, Dustless said, once hit by your Zanpakuto, you can erase the opponent's name. Even if my Ryujin Jaka is hit by you, you can also erase his name. At that time, the ability of Ryujin Jaka will be gone forever. However, after you solve the Bankai, you will gain a new ability. You can engrave a new name on something whose name has been erased by the Bankai. If you engrave Black Ant on the target will become as weak and powerless as an ant. Dustless explained as he stared at the Zanpakuto of the soldier division. This guy, how could he know about my ability? A soldier from the Weapon Master's division was shocked and could not calm down for a long time. He remained motionless as if he had been struck by lightning. Not to mention Dustless, even the members of Squad 0 might not know of his ability. Since you know how powerful my Zanpakuto is, hurry up and surrender. I can tell you clearly, my Zanpakuto. It's better if you don't say such arrogant words. Every time you say such confident words, the fantasy in your heart is instantly shattered, Dustless said with a smile. You bastard. Hearing this, Wei, a soldier from the War Commander Division, was furious. His round eyes locked onto Wu Qin as he waved his Zanpakuto to create a ripple. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The moment it emerged, the ripples were magnified hundreds of times, turning into a ferocious slash that whistled through the air. Your Zanpakuto's ability is very good, Dustless nodded in agreement. Even Yawatch could not take away the ability of a soldier from the Weapon Master Division. His Zanpakuto's ability was exceptionally heaven-defying. Once hit by his slash, his strength would be reduced by half. Poochie. The sword pressure passed through Dustless's body and cut him in half. However, what made the soldier from the Weapon Master Division angry was that the moment he was sent flying, Dustless used his elemental transformation to ignore him. He could not hurt him at all. Bastard, fight me fair and square if you have the guts. Seeing this scene, a soldier from the Weapon Master Division vomited blood in frustration. Any of his attacks did not work on Dustless. It was completely useless. He was just humiliating himself. Old Baldy, pointing to the only remaining palace of the Spirit King Palace behind him, Dustless smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, the person who cut off the Spirit King's limbs should be your 0 squad. Hearing this, a soldier from the Weapon Master Division lowered his head in silence. After a while, he glanced at the Spirit King's position with a complicated expression and said helplessly, You want to devour the Spirit King, so you should know the origin of the Spirit King. Back then, due to the instability caused by stabilizing the soul in and out, a special person was created to stabilize the soul in and out. He is the current Spirit King. Dustless smiled slightly. He already knew this. When he went to the Great Spirit Library to read the secrets of the Spirit King, Dustless happened to see this scene. Later, due to the birth of the Spirit King, the soul did indeed stabilize, and the entire soul society gradually became peaceful. A soldier from the Weapon Master Division recalled with a smile on his face, as if he was yearning for that peaceful life. But later, an accident happened to the Spirit King, and the ending that we did not want to see the most happened. His face suddenly stiffened, a soldier from the Weapon Master Division said with a heavy look in his eyes, The Spirit King actually gave birth to consciousness. This was the result that we did not want to see the most, because he was only created as a tool. A tool with consciousness is not a tool, and he would not listen to us. So we cut off his limbs, took away the Spirit King's consciousness and heart, and sealed the Spirit King until today. The Spirit King is a collection of souls, and has endless power, more powerful than your Hogyoku. A soldier from the Weapon Master Division said in a heavy tone, and then he said angrily, The world is unpredictable, and we thought that this matter would end here. Who would have thought that Yawatch, as a part of the Spirit King's body, would lead Quincy to take revenge on the Death God? The result was the tragic battle that happened 1,000 years ago. Although Yawatch was defeated, he was a part of the Spirit King, and he could not be killed. So Yuan Lu Zai used the same method to take away Yawatch's power and heartbeat. Chapter 1193. Dustless wasn't surprised after listening to the long speech of the first soldier. It was almost the same as what he thought. Soul Society's original intention was to create a tool to maintain the soul, Sai King, and use him as a tool. Who would have thought that this tool would develop consciousness, and the Reapers, who realized that he was too dangerous, cut off Psy King's limbs and made him lose his heart and will. Now they even sealed his soul. You guys, it's all your own fault. Dustless mocked mercilessly. If it were me, I would also kill this Reapers and wash away the shame. For some reason, Dustless suddenly sympathized with Yawatch. You! A soldier from the War Master's division was angered by Wu Chen's words. He shouted, "We have no choice but to sacrifice him for the good of the world. This is justice. So it's natural for Yawatch to hate you Reapers." Dustless said disdainfully, and he had a new understanding of the Reaper's pedantry. However, I still want Psy King to be a part of me. Dustless still refused to let go. If he didn't take Psy King, Yawatch would be the one who would benefit. This was helping the enemy. Humph, I thought I could dispel your unrealistic thoughts, but it's useless now. The first soldier raised his Zanpakuto again, and his meaning was self-evident. 1,000 miles heaven palm. Spiritual pressure fluctuated in his hand, and a huge palm of flesh rushed over. Old thing, you don't have a memory at all. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, and he also raised his arm, and a huge palm of flesh formed in an instant. 1,000 miles heaven palm. The same move flew out from Dustless's mouth, and he used it twice in a row, and it was as powerful as the first soldier. Boom boom boom. The two huge palms inevitably collided, and a series of explosions resounded through the world, and a large amount of flames erupted. Shoo shoo shoo. An afterimage flashed out of the flames, pouncing at the speed of light, and the pen-shaped Zanpakuto slashed down horizontally. Poochie. Dustless, who was caught off guard, was instantly cut into two and brutally dismembered. However, in the next second, the body that was cut into two started to turn into photons. In less than a few seconds, Dustless recovered. This guy. Seeing this, Dustless had a headache. He really wanted to use some sort of illusion attack to test the effect, but other than him, everyone else in Team Zero was finished. Looking at the giant meteorite with the bright moon hanging high in the sky, the soldiers of the War Master Division trembled with fear. He was afraid that Dustless would fall and destroy the Spirit King Palace. Stop playing house. I'm not interested in playing with you anymore. Wu Chen glanced at the guards of the War Master Division, then turned his head to look at the void behind him. A large word, seal, could be seen clearly, forming a transparent barrier. The entire Spirit King Palace was divided into two worlds because of this word. What? Could it be that you want to break my barrier by force? A soldier from the War Master's Division sneered at Dustless's arrogance. Ha! What is that? Green light. The strange light around Dustless attracted the attention of a soldier from the War Master's Division. The emerald light was quite beautiful, and it covered Dustless. Dustless's temperament also changed drastically. He was very cold, and his indifferent eyes looked at the soldier from the War Master's Division like a bug. This is the chakra mode of the Tensigan. Dustless kindly explained to the soldier from the War Master's Division. Humph, I don't care what mode you are in. My seal, the soldier from the War Master's Division stopped talking and looked up at Dustless who was flying in the sky. He frowned as he noticed several mysterious beads floating behind Dustless. That's it, Spirit King Palace. With a wave of her hand, the beads behind her flew in front of Dustless, then they turned into liquid and gathered on Dustless's right arm. Vaguely, a destructive light could be seen. Golden Will Reincarnation Explosion. As soon as he finished speaking, countless slender light swords slashed out and flew straight towards the enchantment that had the word seal written on it. Crack! A crisp sound directly stunned the soldier from the War Master's Division. The enchantment that he painstakingly created was like a watermelon that was penetrated and crushed by the golden light. It's just a so. The green light on the surface of Dustless's skin disappeared. He glanced at the soldier from the War Master's Division and left like a gust of wind. Stop right there. Seeing this, the soldier from the War Master's division was shocked. He activated Shuinpe and quickly blocked in front of Dustless. "Back off!" the soldier from the War Master's division shouted. His tone was filled with flames that burned people's skin. "Old monk, you've blocked in front of me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" Seeing this, Wuchen gradually became more irritated. An unkillable bug, relying on its own ability to jump in front of you again and again, was very hateful. "Since you want to die so badly, I'll grant you your wish." Dustless snorted. Cold chi was pulsing all over his body. A black metal rod appeared in his hand. It was extremely black. It was the yin-yang escape technique. This technique was most suitable to completely crush the enemy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. With a powerful swing, the black metal rod flew out. "Humph, you want to kill me with this? Dream on. You can't even hit me." Just as the soldier from the War Master's division was about to move his body, he was shocked to find that he was being hugged and could not move at all. "Farewell. You have been subdued by my shadow. Be a good boy and wait for your death." Dustless brushed past the soldier from the War Master's division. He did not even look at him as he walked towards the Spirit King Palace. Pfft! The black metal rod finally hit the soldier from the War Master's division. His body began to collapse. Chapter 1194. In the huge Spirit King Palace, Dustless was the only one walking alone. The soldier division was hit by the yin-yang escape, and there was no other choice but death. As for the other 4 members of the Zero Squad, they were all sealed by Dustless inside the 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei. Without a doubt, the final winner was Dustless. After so many years, my long-cherished wish finally came true. Looking at the only remaining palace in front of him, Dustless was full of smiles, and he couldn't help but walk faster. So. At this time, the passers-by suddenly appeared and blocked Dustless's path like a city wall. "Women." Looking at the girls who suddenly appeared in front of him, Dustless frowned and said coldly, "It's just a group of created Zanpakuto. If you don't want to die, get out of my way." These girls in front of him were all hot girls, and they were all created by Wang Yu. But this group of people obviously didn't have the consciousness of the weak, and they completely ignored Dustless's words. "Let our master out, or else, Puchi." The ferocious saber wind shot out, and before the girl with the hot figure could finish speaking, she was chopped into 2 halves, and blood flowed out non-stop. Heido 54, Waste Flame. It seemed that the corpse that was split into 2 was too much of an eyesore. Wuchen directly turned it into powder, completely ignoring the hostile eyes of the rest of the girls, like a gust of wind passing by. "Sisters, do it!" someone shouted, and the group of created Zanpakuto girls all pulled out their swords and looked at Dustless. The ignorant are fearless. Turning his head faintly and glancing at this group of impassioned Zanpakuto, Wuchen shouted softly, and the whole world returned to calm again. Heido 90, Black Coffin. The black light from the sky shredded the girls, and they all fell to the ground with wounds all over their bodies. "Seriously. Firstly, you don't have strength. Secondly, you don't have beauty. Thirdly, you even dared to launch a sneak attack on me. Why wouldn't I kill you?" Dustless shook his head and continued to walk towards the Spirit King Palace. He did not even look at the corpse. Inside the dark hall, the entire world of the Spirit Fong Palace had been reduced to rubble. Only this place remained unscathed. Of course, this was Dustless's intention. Boom, boom, boom. The room suddenly began to tremble. A cold murderous aura shattered everything in the room. "So it's here." A figure walked out from the darkness. Looking at the Spirit King embedded in a special seal, Dustless could not help but sigh. King of the Grim Reaper. You're really pitiful. Your limbs were cut off and your heart and consciousness were taken away. You should be blaming this world, right? Don't worry, I'm going to liberate you now. The Spirit King was silent. He just opened his eyes quietly, no different from the vegetative person that Dustless had experienced in his previous life. It was completely treated as a fair sacrifice. Hee hee. I didn't expect it to be you. In the dark space, there was a sudden vicissitude of emotion. It was like a living fossil from thousands of years ago. It was very old. Who is it? Get out of here. Dustless was stunned and immediately burst out, looking left and right, while his observation hockey spread out. There's no one. Dustless whispered, and immediately felt that someone was watching him, and suddenly raised his head. It's you. You're the Spirit King, how can you talk? Staring, Dustless was horrified. He did not expect the Spirit King to be able to talk. Why can't I talk? The Spirit King frowned and said very doubtfully. This, asked by the Spirit King, Dustless was speechless. He quietly looked at him, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. You're a Grim Reaper. The Spirit King looked at Dustless unkindly, his eyes were obviously filled with murderous intent, and shouted, I will not let you go. Poochie. Wu Chen was silent. What he got in response was a slash. Boom boom boom. At the same time, Soul Society and the modern world trembled fiercely, including Hueco Mundo, as if there was a large earthquake of tens of magnitude. A huge narrow gap appeared, stretching for more than 10 kilometers. Even the Spirit King Palace in front of him was the same. The space was gradually damaged, and there were signs of collapse. It seems that killing the Spirit King will really cause the world to collapse. Perceiving the vibration of the outside world, Dustless whispered, and even the 6 paths Chibaku Tensei he released had a huge gap. Bastard, you dare to use me as a test subject? The Spirit King was furious, his eyes fiercely staring at Dustless, and roared, Make it clear to me, I am your Grim Reaper, how dare you? Shut up, you idiot. With a touch of anger in his eyes, Dustless directly picked up a piece of small step to seal the Spirit King's mouth, and sneered, You will become a part of my body, and I will be the new Spirit King. Without waiting for the Spirit King to speak, Dustless's eyes changed, and a majestic spiritual power invaded his mind, instantly crushing his memory, and turned him into a vegetative existence. Anyway, as long as the Spirit King was not dead, everything would be fine. Taking out the pearl prepared before, it was blue, similar to the Hogyoku, but there was an essential difference. Dustless planned to integrate the Spirit King's whole body into it, and then fuse with the pearl, directly stuffing the Spirit King into his body. Thinking about it made him feel cold, but Dustless could accept such a method. Chapter 1195. Raising his head to look at the Spirit King's body, Dustless still chose this method, stuffing a big man alive into his body. Thinking about it, Dustless felt a chill and uneasiness, his whole body involuntarily having goosebumps. A strange black liquid emerged from his 5 fingers. The moment Dustless touched Soul King, he began to peel off layer by layer, turning into a black liquid that dripped into the ball prepared by Dustless. In the blink of an eye, the blue ball turned black, surrounded by a black fog, looking quite scary, especially Dustless's face began to turn black. Or it could be said that it was dyed black by the black fog. It's really slow. Watching the liquid drop by drop into the ball, Dustless couldn't help but whisper. At the same time, a crazy plan appeared in his mind. 2 of Uraba's guards are Soul King's left arm and heart. Yukatake Jushiro is Soul King's right arm. As long as I integrate them into this ball. Thinking about it, Wu Chen was incomparably passionate. Both of his eyes glowed and shot out a green light of greed. Once the severed body of the Spirit King was completely integrated into it, the power of this main body would also inevitably receive a dimensional upgrade. At that time, Dustless's strength will naturally increase. Let's wait a few days. Looking at Soul King slowly liquefying, Dustless sighed. In the Black Void Palace, Aizen Sosuke always sat on his throne with a sour face. Jin, did you find out the source of the tremors? Aizen suddenly opened his eyes and looked down at the smiling Ikamaru Jin. Aizen quietly asked. Not yet. Jin shook his head. The light tone and the fox's smile made people can't help but doubt whether it was true or not. But, remembering Aizen Sosuke's request, Ikamaru Jin replied, but just as Sosuke Aizen thought, it's not just Hueco Mundo, but also the modern realm and soul society. This is impossible. Sosuke Aizen showed a rare look of astonishment and said in a heavy tone, it shouldn't be that Soul King died. If he suddenly fell, the entire world would slowly collapse. Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and the main world all had the same cracks, but they didn't collapse. It might be a coincidence. Aizen lowered his head and muttered. In fact, he himself was full of doubts. If it was a coincidence, then it was too strange. Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo all shook at the same time. Just thinking about it made Aizen feel that it was illogical. What are the recent movements of the Soul Society? Changing the topic, Aizen thought of Dustless, his nightmarish old enemy. Ever since he appeared, Aizen had been abandoned by Urahara Kasuke. Dustless was his #1 enemy. I don't know either. The newly appointed Captain Dustless hasn't shown up for the 2 captain meetings recently. It's all left to Captain Uno Flower to handle. Jin shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. In these 5 days, Wu Chen had been inside the Spirit King, slowly dissolving the Spirit King's body. His head was full of sweat, and he did not dare to be careless. If the Spirit King died, the entire world would slowly be annihilated. Phew. It's finally done. After who knows how long, excited laughter came from the real Soul King Palace. Looking at the black sphere in his hand, Dustless was filled with anticipation. He had already merged Soul King's entire body into it in liquid form, and it didn't hurt his organs. The only difference was that he was living in a vegetative state. Next, it's the last step. Looking at the black sphere in his hand for a while, Dustless gritted his teeth and stuffed it into his chest without hesitation. Boom boom boom. Endless Reiatsu aftermath broke out from the black ball, and the majestic force began to go berserk. Almost instantly, all the tissues and cells in Wu Chen's body disintegrated. His internal organs were crushed by the torrent in an instant. Cough cough, his face was as pale as snow, and his body was on the verge of collapse. Dustless's mouth also had some dark red blood stains, and the bones in his body seemed to have softened. He didn't have the slightest strength, and it was very strenuous to support his body. Now, even an ordinary human could kill him hundreds of times. It's just a sphere, and it can actually resist. His weak cheeks emitted a touch of Yin Qi, and Dustless's majestic spiritual power invaded the black sphere. The boundless spiritual power was almost endless. As a 10-tailed Dustless, all aspects of his attributes could be said to be perfect. About half an hour later, the black sphere's color changed greatly, and was replaced by a dazzling golden light. Sacred and majestic, the earth-shaking spiritual pressure floated out from Dustless's body. Boom boom boom. The 6 paths Chibaku Tensei that was previously heavily injured, was directly torn into pieces by the impact of the supreme momentum. The huge meteorite turned into fragments and fell to the ground. Dustless's temperament and appearance also changed dramatically, and he fully controlled the power of Soul King. Chapter 1196. The high-density Reiatsu continued to erupt, and the void around Dustless was all torn apart. The violent energy ripples spread wildly, and the places affected would make a buzzing, trembling sound, as if begging for mercy. Even the quality of the spiritual pressure erupting from Dustless was so high that it flowed all over the ground, dyeing the clean ground golden. It was very beautiful. The space behind Dustless was directly shattered, and endless black light shot out. It was like the abyss of the universe, filled with the gravitational force that could destroy the world. It was the graveyard of all living things. This feeling is really great. Carefully experiencing the earth-shaking changes, Dustless slightly moved his muscles and bones, and the pleasant rhythm was very crisp and pleasant to the ears. No wonder Yawatch loves Spirit Kings so much. This cheating device is even more powerful than Hogyoku. Looking at the black bead on his chest, Dustless smiled complacently. The Ryatsu in his body was dozens of times stronger than before, even 100 times more exaggerated. The Hogyoku was made from the souls of Shinigami and hollow selected by Aizen and Kasukirahara. The Spirit King was almost the collection of all souls, so it was more powerful than the Hogyoku. Boom boom boom. At this time, the palace Dustless was in suddenly suffered a heavy blow, and 2 giant holes were chiseled out. The bright morning sun shone in, and Dustless instinctively closed his eyes. In a trance, he saw a few figures descending from the sky. Where did you hide the first soldier of the War Master Division? Several members of Team Zero who escaped from 6 Paths, Chibaku Tensei, questioned. They noticed that Soldier 1's spiritual pressure suddenly disappeared, and there was no trace of him in the world of Spirit King Palace. You are talking about that monk. Sorry, he has been eliminated by me. Dustless stretched and smiled casually. You, Kirin Temple Tencholang looked around, squinting his eyes as if he was looking for something. After a while, he screamed, Bastard, where is Lord Spirit King? Why is Lord Spirit King not here? These words shocked all the members of Team Zero, and they all opened their eyes wide to look for traces of the Spirit King. After a few seconds, they received a terrifying result. The Spirit King had already disappeared. You don't have to look anymore. I've replaced the previous guy and become the new Spirit King. Dustless reminded them out of goodwill when he saw that they were looking for him with distressed faces. Impossible. Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang and Ermeiwu's Wang Yu angrily roared in unison. Their voices were a bit sharp and were neither fish nor fowl. When they were raised, it was extremely frightening. Their faith collapsed, and the 2 of them looked like they had gone insane. Looks like you won't listen. Glancing at the 2 with pity, Dustless's eyes fell on Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senjumaru. He opened his chest, revealing a black pearl. Those 2 boorish men don't know what's good for them. You 2 should know what this is, right? Even if you 2 don't know, your bodies should be able to sense it. Hearing this, the 4 of them stared at the black pearl on Dustless's chest. At this moment, it was shining, extremely bewitching, like a gem shining with gorgeous colors. This is your Lord Spirit King. He has already submitted to me and become a part of my body's strength. With a proud smile, Dustless continued to attack. The eyes of the several people were dull and lifeless. Obviously, they were still in shock from the fall of the Spirit King. Especially after hearing that the first soldier of the Hyabet division had fallen, it was as if they had lost their backbone. Their eyes were full of confusion about the future. The Spirit King's power in their body had a reaction to the black pearl on Dustless's chest, which also meant that the Spirit King had already become a part of Dustless. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Ermeiwu's Wang Yu and Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang suddenly launched an attack. Taking advantage of Dustless's carelessness, the 2 easily subdued Dustless, and their Zanpakuto were pressed against Dustless's throat. Ayaya, it seems that you guys still intend to be stubborn. Originally, I thought that after I became the new Spirit King, I could make you guys wake up. Now, it seems that my thoughts are somewhat naive. Dustless said leisurely. Then, he looked at the two people provocatively and coldly snorted, "You guys can make your move now. After killing me, you can immediately take revenge for the first soldier of the Hyabet division. However, if you feel that you can bear the consequences, feel free to come." The spirit pressure in his body was still, and chakra also didn't show any signs of erupting. Dustless didn't make any attack or defense, and only provoked Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang and Meiwu's Wang Yu. "You think we don't dare?" Narrowing his eyes, Meiwu's Wang Yu coldly asked. "Of course not. It's up to you whether you want to kill me or not. Your hands are on your body, and I can't control you. However, before we act, I have something to remind the both of you. Now that I have tamed the Spirit King, from a certain point of view, I have already merged with that bead, which is also your Spirit King. If I die, he will not be able to escape. You should know what the consequences of a Spirit King's death are." Finished speaking, Dustless smiled proudly. He didn't believe that Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang and Meiwu's Wang Yu would kill him. They couldn't afford the disastrous consequences after the death of the Spirit King. But obviously, Dustless made a mistake this time. He only saw a blade light coming. Humph, don't underestimate people too much. Pay the price for your arrogance. Meiwu's Zanpakuto swept over. Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang also did the same. Both of them made their move at the same time. Courting death. His whole body shook, and the vast spirit pressure surged. Just as he was about to kill the two people, someone else cleaned up the mess for Dustless. "Puchi! Puchi!" Meiwu's Wang Yu and Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang were hit in the back, leaving a huge hideous wound. The two people's attack stagnated, and they fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, not only Meiwu's Wang Yu and Qilan Temple's Tian Shilang were stunned, Dustless was also stunned. They looked at the culprit. Chapter 1197. It happened so suddenly that not only Dustless was stunned and sluggish, but the victims, Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilan Temple, also turned their heads in anger out of shame. "It's you two." Dustless stared blankly at the person who released the black blade. It turned out to be Shura Thousand-Hand Maru and Sayaso Tongsai. "Bastard, what do you two mean by this?" Wang Yu Nyamiya endured the stinging pain all over her body and almost roared out, "Is he the one who murdered Lord Spirit King? He is the enemy of death. Now, we have already lost. You two are the ones who are rebellious, and you two are also the ones who are stubborn. He has become Spirit King, and you two still want to kill him. If this isn't rebellious, then what is?" Looking at Dustless with a complicated look, Sayaso Tongsai's heart was filled with emotions. His mixed feelings couldn't hide the bitterness in his heart. The former enemy had become their god in one fell swoop. The change was not small. "Ayaya, I thought Squad Zero was an idiot who stuck to the rules. Now, there are finally two enlightened ones," Dustless said with a smile. She skipped to the side of Shura Thousand-Hand Maru. When she was about to get closer to him, her cold voice made Dustless's smile freeze. "What I acknowledge is your identity as the Spirit King. As for you as a person, forget it." Shura Thousand-Hand Maru's tone was indifferent. Looking at Dustless, there was only endless coldness. It could be seen that if it wasn't for the identity of Spirit King, she would have already brandished her blade to kill Dustless. "It's really cold." Seeing this, Dustless could only sigh helplessly. He had used her time and time again, so it was natural for her to be hostile to him. "What about you two? Are you going to continue to oppose me or choose to surrender?" Turning his head to look at the pale Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilan Temple, Dustless asked indifferently, "If you choose to continue to resist, only death awaits you." Wang Yu Nyamiya and Tenshiro of Qilan Temple couldn't help but fly into a rage. Their red eyes stared at Shura Thousandhand Maru and Syaso Tongsai at the same time. The two of you actually betrayed Team Zero. Have you forgotten the original concept of Team Zero? The purpose of your existence is to protect the Spirit King, and now you are turning against a traitor. Qilin Temple's Tianqilang was both angry and shocked. Even Dustless turned a deaf ear to him. The ones who don't understand the situation are the two of you. He is the Spirit King now. You should know the consequences of killing him. Shidoro Senjumaru said expressionlessly. Her tone revealed a trace of headache. Her former enemy had instantly become the supreme leader of their Shinigami. This huge contrast made her somewhat dizzy. If we can't kill him, then we should seal him. The Spirit King's instinct is just a tool to maintain the entry and exit of Soul Society's souls. Clenching his teeth, Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang stubbornly said. TSK, TSK, TSK. I've just become the new Spirit King, and I'm already witnessing Team Zero's internal strife. To think that I would be able to witness such a rare scene of fratricide. The heavens are really kind to me. Casually finding a stone to sit down, Dustless smiled. His words made Qilin Temple's Tian Sherlang and Nyamiya's Wang Yu go berserk. The culprit of everything is this bastard. I'll show you now. Nyamiya's Wang Yu roared. After that, he rushed forward with his Zanpakuto. The me 10 minutes ago and the me now are completely different. There is no need to even make a move to deal with the two of you. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and an explosive spiritual pressure broke out of his body. Boom boom boom. In the void, a spectacular spiritual flame burned. The sky was filled with majestic golden light. Endless majesty floated from Dustless's body. Caw caw caw. Nyamiya's Wang Yu suddenly stopped. He looked at the indifferent Dustless in horror. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. His skin began to slowly ooze blood, and his body made popping sounds. All the bones in his body were crushed by Dustless's spiritual pressure. This is my current strength. Do you think you are still qualified to seal me? Dustless joked. Then, seeing the murderous intent and hatred in Nyamiya's eyes, he made up his mind and even more violent spiritual pressure spurted out. Bang bang bang. Nyamiya's Wang Yu, who couldn't bear the pressure, exploded and turned into a pile of blood mist. Even his bones were not left. His whole body was crushed by Dustless. Gulp. Seeing this, Shidoro Senjumaru and Seo Tongsai choked and looked at Dustless with awe and horror. The eyes that were indifferent to all living things were obviously the legendary god. All life in his eyes were just insects that could be destroyed with a raise of his hand. He just crushed Nyamiya's Wang Yu with spiritual pressure. You bastard, I'm going to kill you. Seeing that his companion and friend of many years was killed, Kirin Temple Tenchula went berserk on the spot and rushed up with his strange Zanpakuto. I thought that killing him could wake you up and see the reality clearly. Now it seems that my idea was too naive. Killing Nyamiya's Wang Yu didn't wake you up. Instead, it backfired. Dustless said with pity. Team Zero was a qualified thug. If they were obedient, Dustless didn't want to kill them. But some people always like to court death. A white flash appeared on his finger. Dustless aimed at the head of Kirin Temple Tenchulu, and the light whistled out. Fourth path of destruction, white thunder. The insignificant white thunder turned into a rolling divine thunder that covered an area of 100 meters in diameter. The speed was also very fast and disappeared in a flash. Boom boom boom. Kirin Temple Tenchula disappeared, and not even the remains of his bones were left. It was even more thorough than Nyamiya's Wang Yu. After obtaining the power of Spirit King, Dustless's strength was enhanced. Seeing these living creatures, there was only one feeling, to destroy them with a raise of his hand. Chapter 1198. This unstoppable strength made Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai feel a chill. They were both stunned, and their scalps were numb. The power of a white thunder could be so powerful that it killed the members of Team Zero without any effort. Are you surprised? To be honest, I'm also surprised. Dustless showed a faint smile, feeling the vigorous power fluctuation in his body, showing a fascinated and enjoying expression. This endless Ryatsu made him feel as if he was floating in the clouds, which was very comfortable. And this is only a part of the Spirit King. His 4 limbs and one of his hearts are still drifting outside. We must retrieve them. Ignoring the surprise of Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai, Dustless muttered to himself. I'm warning you, you are now Spirit King, and you are not allowed to leave Spirit King Palace. Shidoro Senjumaru said with a straight face. The dignified Spirit King, the chisel of all living things, once Dustless, as the Spirit King, died, they would all be unlucky. This was also one of the fundamental reasons why Team Zero worked hard to protect Spirit King. Hearing this, Dustless smiled strangely and said flatteringly, since you admit that I am Spirit King, then you should help me. Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senjumaru frowned, especially at this moment. The Ryatsu hidden in Sayaso Tongsai's body was completely used up. The recovered hot body was particularly attractive, as if there was a gravitational force that attracted Dustless's gaze. This pervert, Shidoro Senjumaru cursed in his heart, secretly scolding Dustless for eating in the bowl, but still thinking about the pot. He looked straight at Sayaso Tongsai's eyes. His face was full of longing, and it was really hateful in the eyes of Shidoro Senjumaru. Cough, Dustless seemed to be aware of the resentment in Shidoro Senjumaru's eyes. He smiled and retracted his gaze, and said, whether it is Yukatake Jushiro, Yawatch, or his guards, they are all part of Spirit King's identity. I must take them all back. You two must help me. This is an order. Dustless said with a straight face. There was no room for negotiation, and his firm tone was unshakable. Yawatch is fine, but Yukatake Jushiro, Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Senjumaru looked at each other and saw the hesitation in each other's eyes. If they killed Jushiro Yukatake for no reason, they wouldn't be able to accept it. After all, he had worked hard for Soul Society for hundreds of years. As expected, I can't count on you guys. Dustless sighed. He was just saying it casually and did not have much hope. He could do it himself. However, there is something that you must help me with. Dustless took a step back and said, I think you should all understand the structure of the Hogyoku. I need you two to make a batch for me. A batch? Hearing this, the faces of Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai twitched. They looked at Dustless speechlessly and incredulously, and asked, now that you have the power of Spirit King, things like Hogyoku should be dispensable. And how many Hogyoku were you talking about? It should not be as simple as 1 or 2. Sayaso Tongsai looked at Dustless in surprise and continued to ask, are you saying that you are going to give the Hogyoku to others? Yes. Dustless nodded and said bluntly, I have a lot of subordinates, but their overall strength is not strong. I need Hogyoku to improve their strength. But there is no need to make a batch. Shidoro Senjumaru was speechless, but he felt a sense of belonging to Dustless. A person who could understand and take care of his subordinates was the best. Now that the Spirit King Palace has been destroyed, it is impossible for us to make Hogyoku. Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai glared at Dustless fiercely, and then said angrily, you are the initiator of all this. This is very simple. The previous Spirit King is gone. Now that I have replaced him, it is natural to change to a new Spirit King Palace. Hearing this, Dustless smiled, and a ball flew out from his hand, slowly floating in the air, and constantly expanding. What is this thing? Sayaso Tongsai was curious and immediately asked, are you planning to use this to recreate the Spirit King? Why can't I? Wuchen didn't fight back and asked. Immediately, his will erupted, and the void continued to expand, turning into an unprecedentedly large sphere. Everything that the truth-seeking jade came into contact with outside collapsed, and inside the truth-seeking jade, an ideal world was slowly taking shape according to Dustless's will. In the blink of an eye, the interior of the truth-seeking jade formed a retro world of pavilions, rockery, and flowing water. There were even a few migratory birds swaying in the sky, and rare rabbits rolling and playing on the green grass. How is this possible? Shidoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai opened their mouths wide, and their jaws were about to dislocate. Both of them belonged to the category of mad scientists, and they had endless curiosity about unsolved mysteries. Is this also the ability that you got by swallowing the Spirit King? Sayaso Tongsai asked in shock. Her eyes were full of stars as she looked at Dustless. She was panting, and the majestic snow-capped mountain in front of her was completely exposed. Seeing Sayaso Tongsai's admiring eyes, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really couldn't be happy, and he was afraid that she was thinking of dissecting him at this moment. This is one of my own abilities, and it has nothing to do with the Spirit King. Dustless put his hands into the wide captain's sleeves and said calmly, the name of this technique is called the Truth-Seeking Jade, or to be precise, the Expanding Truth-Seeking Jade. It can create and destroy the world, and it is my unique technique. Chapter 1199. Time flew by, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Dustless had been staying in the Spirit King Palace. There were only 3 people in the big world, Dustless, Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru, and Sayaso Tongsai. Thousand Hand Maru, I need to catch some hollow souls. I will leave the rest of the tasks to you for the time being. Sayaso Tongsai said. The development of Hogyoku required a lot of souls, especially the mass production of Hogyoku, which required more souls. Their hasty preparation was not enough. No problem, leave it to me. Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru nodded his white chin lightly. He was quite confident in his work efficiency and gave Sayaso Tongsai a reassuring look. The latter nodded gently and left. Only Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru was left in the laboratory. She has already left. You can come out even if you dawdle for a long time, my Spirit King. Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the figure in the dark corner. He said disdainfully and sarcastically, your hiding technique is too bad. No, Dustless said a few times in a row. He smiled meaningfully and said, if I don't expose my aura, Sayaso Tongsai won't be able to detect it. She will not leave. I am smart. So what? Hearing this, Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru glanced at Dustless and then continued the experiment in his hand. He asked coldly, is this the reason why you are sneaking around? Dustless's old face was embarrassed. Peeping at others was indeed a shameful thing. Hee. After experiencing several worlds, Dustless had already been trained to be thick-skinned. He immediately approached Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru and said with a smile, don't make it sound so bad. After all, we are nothing. Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru interrupted Dustless directly and sneered ruthlessly, I will treat it as if I was bitten by a dog in the past. Don't think too much. What did you say? Hearing this, Dustless's face turned green. He stared at Shidoro Senjumaru's curvaceous body, and a red light flashed in his eyes as he said, then I will continue to bite you now. The Ryatsu in his body vibrated, and a ray of light shot out. The clothes on Shidoro Senjumaru's body burst open, revealing his pure white body. Wuchen suddenly changed his mind. His clear eyes turned red in an instant. When dealing with some women, he could take care of them and melt them with his passionate heart. But when dealing with such a virtuous woman like Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru, he could only crush her dignity. Panting heavily, he originally wanted to resolve the grudge between him and Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru. Who would have thought that this woman would be so insensible? Since being submissive was useless, he could only continue to use force. He would trample her until she submitted. Bastard, what are you trying to do? After staring blankly for a moment, Shidoro Senjumaru shrieked, his tone filled with endless indignation and killing intent. He didn't even think about it as he directly attacked Dustless with a powerful move. Hado number 88, Flying Long Strike Thief, Sky-Shaking Thunder Cannon. A thick beam of light shot out. It happened suddenly and without any accident, it blasted Dustless and set off a huge explosion. What kind of monster is this? Seeing the figure that was safe and sound in the flames, Shidoro Senjumaru's hope instantly fell through. Dustless was blasted by the number 88 Hado, and he didn't have any defense, but he himself was completely fine. Only his clothes had some traces of being burned. What did you do just now? Dustless, who recovered, asked. He turned his head and looked at the beam of light that flashed behind him. With a straight face, he said, attacking Spirit King is a big problem, now it's an even bigger crime. Finished speaking, Dustless pounced on Shidoro Senjumaru. Bastard, let go of me. Shidoro Senjumaru's face was red as she struggled violently. She used all her strength to resist Dustless, but the effect was minimal. In front of absolute strength, her meager strength was not worth mentioning to Dustless. In a short while, she had exhausted all her strength and could only let this crazy hungry wolf in front of her do whatever he wanted. I like to deal with women like you who don't know what's good for them. Putting down Shidoro Senjumaru, Dustless said with an unruly look, to deal with people who don't know what's good for them, the method is very simple, and that is to be more violent than them. You, woo-woo. Before she could finish, Dustless violently sealed Shidoro Senjumaru's big mouth, and his hands moved freely. Until 12 hours later, Dustless walked out of the laboratory with a refreshed look. There are always so many people who overestimate themselves. They know that resistance is useless, but they still struggle. I don't understand. In the rebuilt Spirit King Palace, Dustless shook his head and sighed. It had been many days, and he had to return to Soul Society. In the sky above Soul Society, a white light flashed and formed a portal. Dustless, wearing the captain's haori, stepped out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As if sensing the anomaly, several black figures appeared in the sky. They were the members of the 2nd Division of the Xing Army. Ayaya. Captain Soy Fong, you're really loyal. You're so loyal that I want to pass the position of the next captain to you. Looking at the confused Soy Fong, Dustless teased. Captain, aren't you in Soul Society? Soy Fong frowned and asked. She didn't hear that Dustless left. Oh right, before I left a doppelganger in Soul Society. Dustless looked at Soy Fong with interest and smiled. I just came back from Hueco Mundo to gather information. Hueco Mundo. Soy Fong was stunned, and her expression changed. Are you saying that Aizen Sosuke is going to attack Soul Society? Dustless smiled mysteriously and said softly, you're right, Aizen Sosuke is going to attack us in the next few days. Hurry up and gather the captains for a strategy meeting. Chapter 1200. At this moment, in Soul Society's 1st Division, no one spoke, and the atmosphere was particularly oppressive. In the spacious team house, a group of team leaders gathered. Everyone looked at Wu Qin from the corner of their eyes. They didn't understand what was going on and looked at Wu Qin. This guy always refused to attend the team leaders' meeting previously. It was only this time that he took the initiative to request for a meeting. Cough cough cough. Seeing everyone's eyes fixed on him, Dustless deliberately coughed twice, raised his voice, and said loudly, everyone. To be honest, the reason why I refused the captain's meeting these days is because I was secretly investigating Sosuke Aizen. I accidentally found that he was secretly making dozens of Aka's Arancars in Hueco Mundo. After the completion, Sosuke Aizen will start a war with us. Wu Chen's words stirred up thousands of ripples. All the captain's spirits were shaken, and their faces were full of astonishment. What kind of concept was dozens of Akas? They could easily fight with Soul Society and not be at a disadvantage, and they could even defeat all the Shinigami. Even if the Aka's Arancars were not as good as captain-level Shinigami, they could easily fight captains, and both sides generally had a 5-5 win rate. Captain, did you make a mistake? As soon as Dustless finished speaking, someone immediately interrupted him. Mayuri, who was standing at the end, stepped forward and immediately questioned. Recently, the 12th Division has been paying attention to the movements of Hueco Mundo and Hueco Mundo. We didn't see a large group of Akas gathering, and Hueco Mundo shouldn't have that many Akas for Sosuke Aizen. After these words, all the captains nodded in agreement. This old guy, seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly, and a flash of displeasure appeared in his eyes. This excuse was, of course, made up by him. His purpose was to trick the few captains he didn't like into going to Hueco Mundo, and then secretly kill them. Out of sight, out of mind. Captain Ye's words are reasonable. Toshiro met Dustless's gaze and analyzed wisely. Hueco Mundo's strength is obvious. If there really were so many Ajuches, Aizen would have attacked Soul Society a long time ago. The head captain must have seen Aizen's Shirkai, Mirror Flower, Water Moon, and was tricked by him. It's just a catoptric deflection. How can I be deceived by him? His ability doesn't work on me. Otherwise, our Grim Reaper team would have been wiped out. Dustless immediately retorted. He was rather disgusted by this snobbish brat who was always pointing the spear at him. Everyone. I think the head captain's words make sense. A pleasant voice spoke up for Dustless. Don't forget, Aizen Sosuke killed the captain. If he can create a miracle once, why can't he create a second one? Not to mention a few dozen Ajuches, even if he can create a few dozen Vastolord, I'll still believe it. After all, that man's ability is there. The person who spoke was Uno Hualai. Her words were very convincing, and everyone could not help but sigh in admiration. I think the head captain has a point. Hirako Shinko, who was recently promoted to the 5th Division captain by Dustless, said, everyone may not know this, but Sosuke Aizen did indeed create a Vastolord. The black ovoid that attacked Captain Ishin was created by him. Previously, there were still some people who had doubts. Now, after hearing this, everyone was convinced. Then what do? We can't just sit here and wait. Toshiro said anxiously. Captain Toshiro, don't worry. I already have a plan. Dustless looked at Unohana Retsu with satisfaction and smiled. The plan is simple. Gather a group of captains and sneak attack Aizen Sosuke. It's best if we can get his Hogyoku back. Even if we can't, we have to kill those Ajuches. It's best if we can kill them all. As for the candidates, Dustless's eyes flashed with cold killing intent as he said, this time, Captain Itsuki, Captain Toshiro, and Captain Unohana will participate. In order to avoid being suspected, Wuchin even added Uno Hualai into the list. Wuchin stared at the captains again and again. Finally, his eyes fell on a middle-aged man with pale hair and a dispirited look. A touch of passion flashed in his eyes. Captain Yukitake, you should also go this time. Dustless naturally wanted the Soul King's right arm in Yukitake Jushiru's body. Yukitake is also going. Shuinsue's face flashed with worry. Yukitake Jushiru was suffering from a serious illness. Just as he was about to refuse, Yukitake Jushiru spoke first. No problem, head captain. Yukitake Jushiru's words sealed Shuinsue's thoughts. He could only lower his head and give up. After all, this was his own matter, and it was not Shuansui's place to say anything. However, there was always someone who meddled in other people's business. Of course, this kind of thing needs me. A rough voice came out, and everyone felt a pain in their old face. This voice was like a thorn, making people feel uncomfortable all over. I wanted to let you live for a while, but you seem to like to die. Dustless's face turned cold as he mocked Zaraki in his heart. He was afraid that this brat Zaraki really thought he was invincible. He secretly thought, but this is also good. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll send you master and disciple to heaven so that Yamamoto won't say I'm not kind. In that case, Captain Zaraki will also go. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. Don't let me down. Chapter 1201. Glancing at Zaraki Kenpachi, Dustless sighed in pity. Originally, he had planned to borrow this young man's strength to deal with Aizen, but now that he wanted to die, Dustless naturally couldn't go against his will. Is there anything else you want to say? Dustless looked around and asked. The captains didn't say anything, they just lowered their heads and thought about the current situation. Don't worry, as long as we are united, we will be invincible. Wu Chen, whose face was flushed, raised his arms and shouted, trying to stir up the atmosphere at the scene. This guy is really, sigh. Unohana Retsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, she could only sigh in her heart. The biggest disaster of Soul Society was Dustless, but now he was shamelessly shouting such nonsense, how abominable. Woman, what do you know? This is called being smart. Dustless seemed to have noticed Unohana Retsu's gaze. He thought disdainfully, if I don't play these people to death, I won't have a good life as a captain. These people jumped out every day to discuss Dustless, just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. Captain, isn't it a bit inappropriate to attack rashly? Shuki Byakuya, who was always silent, asked. After all, the enemy was Aizen Sosuke, a peak existence that could kill a captain. He was unparalleled in intelligence and strength, they might suffer a double loss. TCH, if you are afraid, you can withdraw. Zaraki curled his lips and mocked, if you're afraid, I'll deal with the enemies assigned to you. Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes glowed with a burning halo. He was fearless as if nothing was worth mentioning in front of him. He was extremely arrogant. What did you say? Shuki Byakuya's tone was cold. Obviously, he wasn't a kind person, he didn't like this uncouth guy, he even hated him. Zaraki was one of those arrogant people who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Zaraki smiled ferociously, he said even more arrogantly, what I want to say is, even if you are a captain, you have nothing to do with that group of trash. Enough, all of you shut up. Dustless's eyes emitted a cold glint. Seeing that Stone was in a bad situation, he immediately stopped him and said, this is a captain's meeting, not a market for the two of you to chatter endlessly. This matter ends here. In 3 days, follow my orders and attack Hueco Mundo. Dustless and Unohua were in the 4th Division's quarters, or more accurately, on Unohua's bed. Occasionally, they would let out languid moans that would make one's face turn red. Since you came back from the Spirit King Palace, does that mean you wiped out Team Zero? Unohua lay quietly in Dustless's embrace. The two of them were completely naked as they hugged each other, feeling the warmth of each other's body. Their hearts were filled with satisfaction. Of course, that stinky monk, Qilin Temple's Tianshi Lang, and Mei Wu's Wang Yu, those 3 pedantic people have all been sent to heaven by me. As for Sayako Kirusei and Shura Thousand Hand Maru, I've already tamed them, and they are currently mass-producing Hogyoku for me. Hearing this, Unohua's gentle face had a faint smile, and the corner of her eyes had a hint of mockery. Her black-bellied personality was completely exposed. What's with that expression? Dustless was instantly speechless. Uno Hua Lai gave him a headache, and he sighed. I did have that kind of relationship with Shura Thousand Hand Maru as you imagined, but I had no choice. I had to leave the spatial coordinates in her body, or else I would never be able to reach the Spirit King Palace. Don't interrupt me, I don't care about such a small matter. Uno Hua Lai glared at Dustless and asked expectantly, how should I address you now? Head Captain, or, is it more appropriate to call you Spirit King? So that's what you're asking. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding, and he looked at Uno Hua Lai mockingly, and said, that's not important, I'm the invincible little husband. Without giving Uno Hua Lai any time to breathe, Dustless pounced on her again like a hungry wolf. The sky of Hueco Mundo was cold, and it was always accompanied by a sandstorm. The sky twisted, and a few figures appeared. Katiki Byakuya, Nishiya Toshiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, and Uno Hua Lai were all there. Did we come to the wrong place? Nishiya Toshiro was disappointed. There were no greater voids within a few dozen kilometers, and there were only low-level voids. They were not even on the same level as Jillian, so they obviously did not come to the empty night palace. No, we didn't come to the wrong place. The location that Lord Chen mentioned is indeed here. Uno Hua Lai revealed a creepy smile as she pulled out her zanpakuto that had not been unsheathed for many years. Her entire temperament changed, and she was no longer as gentle as before. Her red eyes made her look like a bloodthirsty executioner, causing others to shiver. The captains were stunned, and they frowned as they stared at Uno Hua Lai, who was filled with killing intent. They were not used to this temperament, as if the air they breathed into their lungs was filled with the smell of blood, and it was also filled with fatal danger. Don't you think this is a good place? Even if the most intense battle happens, no one will notice it. This is a place where no one cares about Hueco Mundo. Uno Hua Lai, who had completely pulled out her zanpakuto, was even more shocked. The cold killing intent caused the surrounding temperature to drop by 100 times, and it was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. Also, don't you think this is a good place to bury a group of people? Chapter 1202. Anohua's abnormal behavior naturally attracted everyone's attention. Her murderous look made her look as if she was possessed by a ghost. She gave off an ominous aura. Captain Unohana, are you okay? Higashiya Nishiya asked curiously. He walked in front of Unohana Retsu and looked at her. He suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Being stared at by Unohana Retsu's emotionless eyes, he felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. This is probably the outer area of Hueco Mundo, so our target isn't here. Let's go back. Captain Unohana's reaction is abnormal. What happened? Joshua Yukitake frowned as he saw the murderous look in Unohana Retsu's eyes. He then saw Captain Nishitani walking next to Unohana Retsu and was shocked. Come back, Captain Nishitani, be careful, Puchi. Before Joshua Yukitake could finish, the merciless blade pierced through Nishitani's body. There was a long and narrow wound on his right shoulder. It went from top to bottom and almost covered his entire body. The wound was so deep that one could see the white bone underneath. Ah! He's not dead. How can a kid be so tough? Or is my zanpakuto rusty because I haven't fought for so many years? Unohana Retsu smiled gently. But in the eyes of these captains, she was scarier than a demon and more ruthless than Aizen Sosuke. Go to hell, Captain Nishitani. Unohana Retsu's unique curved zanpakuto was raised again and slashed at Toshiro Nishitani's head. Clang clang clang. Unohana Retsu's zanpakuto was stopped by someone. In the nick of time, a black shadow blocked the fatal attack for Toshiro Nishitani. Ayaya, Captain Yuki, it seems like you like to meddle in other people's business. It seems that he made the right choice to eliminate you. Unohana Retsu glanced at Yuki Byakuya's expressionless face and smiled. Hato 90 black, ha ha ha. Did you forget about me? Uno Hana. 8,000. Ryu. Behind him, the ground trembled as Zaraki Kenpachi rushed over while waving his broken Zanpakuto full of sawtooth. Every time he took a step, the ground would shake along with his footsteps. My enemy right now is not you, Zaraki. Looking at Zaraki, Uno Hanaretsu's voice was filled with killing intent. Sensing Zaraki's Ryatsu, she said with disdain, just like before, only your Ryatsu has increased. Everything else is still the same. Stupid. Ha ha ha, unbridled laughter resounded through the deathly silent Hueco Mundo. Zaraki Kenpachi attacked with all his strength. Just as he was about to reach Uno Hanaretsu, his huge body suddenly stomped on the ground. Caw caw caw. Unable to withstand the enormous weight, Zaraki's entire body flew into the air and slashed at Uno Hanaretsu. Wang Su's flash. The golden sphere whizzed over, and the miserable Zaraki was blown away, lying on the ground with smoke rising from his body. Captain Zaraki. Seeing this, Yukitake Jushiro was shocked. He turned to look at the direction where the flash came from. A young woman with wheat-colored skin and blonde hair was rushing over. Captain Uno Hana. You also betrayed Soul Society and allied with Hueco Mundo. Yukitake Jushiro looked at the heavily injured Toshiro and Zaraki Kenpachi on the ground with a heavy heart. His heart dropped from the clouds to the depths of hell. It had only been less than 2 minutes since the start of the match, but 2 captains had already been severely injured. It's not that I allied with Hueco Mundo, but that we're all on the same side. Uno Hualai replied casually and gracefully. Uno Hanaretsu's point of view was quite similar to Dustless's. In her eyes, there were only strong and weak. Shinigami and Great Void were not important to her. That's right, we're all on the same side. She had already accepted Dustless's orders and hurried over to ambush the captains. She had rushed over to ambush the captains. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a few more sonic booms were heard, and 3 figures landed on the ground at the same time. That guy is getting lazier and lazier. He actually sent us to such a desolate place. Nero, Bambietta, and the other 2 Quincy masters all revealed their identities and looked at Hueco Mundo with dissatisfaction. Ayaya, you guys are the reinforcements she was talking about, right? All of you are indeed beautiful enough to cause the downfall of a city. Looks like Chinkuen is really bad. Uno Hanaretsu's eyes narrowed into slits. Although she said that, her tone was actually quite jealous. Chinkuen. Hearing this name, Yukitake Jushiro couldn't help but frown. He felt that this name was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. I thought that I didn't need to come over to take a look. Who knew that there would be a big problem here? The void exploded, and a black figure walked out. Dustless was floating in the sky with his hands behind his back. He quietly looked down at the people fighting below and calmly found his way. Sir Head Captain. When the defeated Shinigami captains saw Dustless appear, their faces flushed red as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They looked at Dustless with bright eyes. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, who was previously knocked out, tried his best to open his eyes and moved closer to Dustless as if he had found his pillar of support. Not good. Seeing that Dustless's eyes were as cold as Uno Hanaretsu's, Yukitake Jushiro's heart skipped a beat. He cursed in his heart. He couldn't help but associate Chinkuen and Dustless with the same person. Chapter 1203. Although he was sick, it didn't mean that he was stupid. Not only that, but he was also very attentive and smart. He also had an extraordinary mind. Is that so? Captain Uno Hana betrayed us. I am also very sad, Captain Hifani. Looking at the approaching Nishino, Wuchen pretended to be sad. The golden Kusanagi sword appeared in his hand, and its power was endless. It's good that Captain knows. Hearing this, Higashiya Toshiro heaved a sigh of relief. With Wu Chen, the strongest fighter, joining the battle, the scales of victory would definitely tilt towards them. Just as he was about to expose Unohana Retsu's crimes, Wu Chen looked at him with a mocking expression. Get out of the way, Captain Hifani and Captain Unohana are partners. Fujiwara Toshiro's anxious reminder came over. Hearing this, Toshiro's face froze. Suddenly, he felt a pair of emotionless eyes staring at him. His body instinctively retreated. Puchi! Nishineya Toshiro dodged quickly, but Wu Chen was even faster. It was as if he had teleported and sealed off Nishineya Toshiro's escape route. The sharp edge of Kusanagi Toshiro's Kusanagi sword cut him into pieces. Bang! Dust flew up from the ground, and blood soaked the dry desert. A young arm could be clearly seen. I missed, Wu Chen was surprised. He looked at Nishiya, who was in pain, and scratched his head embarrassedly. He apologized. Oh, I'm sorry, Captain Nishiya. I wanted to kill you once and let you die painlessly. Who knew that your reaction speed was so fast that I missed my target? But it doesn't matter. I'll make up for it now. Wu Chen apologized seriously with an apologetic face, but the sly smile on his face made people dare not compliment him. You bastard! Looking at his bleeding shoulder, Higashi Shiro was in so much pain that he wanted to die. Emerald's eyes were dim, and she was severely injured. Her body was on the verge of collapsing. Leave Hinamori to me, you can die now. He swung the Kusanagi sword again, and the golden blade slashed towards Higashi Shiro's head. Binding down number 61, 6-rod light prison. Just as Dustless was about to decapitate Higashi Shiro, 6 huge light ribbons came from all directions, stopping Dustless's attack. Seizing the opportunity, Rifen Gushido Shiro retreated in a flash, and only then was he able to avoid a great disaster. There are always a lot of reckless people. Dustless turned his head and glanced at the figure who had cast the 6-staff light prison. He said softly, Captain Shiomu, let me take care of Rukia as well. This way, you can die without regrets. Caw caw caw. He lifted his foot slightly and twisted his body. Cracks appeared on the 6 huge light ribbons in the blink of an eye. When his right foot landed on the ground, the 6-rod light prison collapsed. Staring at the slender and graceful figures, Dustless's expression was cold. He gave a cold order expressionlessly, Lai, Hellable, Niru, looking at the 3 women, and then at the remaining 2, Dustless said softly, and Candace and Bambiita. Kill all the captains except Yukitake Jushiro. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a command, the women pounced on their enemies and launched a fierce pursuit. Suddenly, a cloud of dust rose from the ground, and a figure descended from the sky. Yukitake Jushiro raised his head, and Dustless came into his sight. His cold little face was isolated from the world, and there was no trace of emotion on it. It was as if the smiling captain was just pretending. You're already the captain, why do you still do this? Yukitake Jushiro asked with a pale face. He was puzzled by Dustless's actions. It was completely harming others without benefiting himself. He continued, if you leave us here, you can deal with Aizen Sosuke, don't make fun of me. Do you think you can deal with Aizen Sosuke with your strength? It's better not to say such nonsense. Besides, you're completely superfluous to me, especially you, Captain Yukitake. Dustless stared at Yukitake Jushiro. Thinking of his identity as the right arm of the Spirit King, Dustless's eyes flashed with a touch of passion. He knew the benefits of this great tonic very well. Suddenly, Yukitake Jushiro instinctively realized that something was wrong. He asked with an ugly face, that great void called Nero was the one who came to Soul Society to deceive the captains. Could it be, Kakik? It seems that you're not an idiot, It's rare for you to be enlightened. Dustless laughed, silently admitting that it was his doing. Anyway, this group of people was about to go to heaven together. It was fine to reluctantly tell them the cause and effect of everything. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know why they died. Sakura Sajin, Kuchiki Byakuya, and Nishitani Toshiro have always been against me. Today's ending is their own fault. As for Zaraki Kenpachi, that idiot jumped in to seek death. I had no choice but to take his life. Among these people, only you are special, Captain Yukitake. Dustless's eyes emitted a fiery light. His voice rose a few decibels. You're wondering why I'm doing this to you. Let me tell you. From a certain point of view, your body contains the legendary right arm of the Spirit King, which is equivalent to a part of the Spirit King's power in my body. Therefore, how can I just watch and not do anything about it? His words made Yukitake Jushira feel like he was struck by lightning. Huff, 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 gasping for breath, Yukitake Jushira looked at Dustless as if he had seen a ghost. This was his biggest secret. Even his best friends, Shunsui Kaikura and Yamamoto, did not know about it. But how did this kid know? Chapter 1204. Jushira Yukitake was shocked, and his eyes widened. His evaluation of Dustless changed again. This guy could see the future. He was like an omniscient and omnipotent existence. Actually, looking straight at Jushira, Dustless said bluntly, within the Godii 13, you gave me a good impression. At least, you are better than that cunning old fox Shunsui. Unfortunately, you are indirectly the right arm of the Spirit King, which means you are destined to be my enemy. Jushira Yukitake did not deny it. It seems that the incident of dozens of Ajuchas was also fabricated by you. That's right. The number of Ajuchas in Hueco Mundo can be counted with one hand, let alone dozens. At this point, Dustless readily admitted everything. After all, they were a group of people who were about to die, so there was no need to fool them. Don't be so sure. You might be the one who will become the prey. A cold voice came. Dustless was stunned. He turned his head and saw a large number of cherry blossoms floating toward him. There were thousands of them, covering the entire sky. So many petals, which means there are thousands of blades. Not bad. Looking at the incoming petals, Wuchen remained indifferent. He stood quietly in the same spot without moving. The corner of his mouth curled up as he muttered to himself, however, petals are ultimately used for appreciation. He is still too weak to use them for attack. Humph, I hope you can still be so calm later. Kukimu Baya snorted and waved his hand. The number of petals increased sharply, forming an oval ball of petals that wrapped around Dustless. Everyone, we can't fight for too long. Let's hurry back to Soul Society and reveal this guy's conspiracy to the world. Jushira Yukitake shouted and tried to retreat into the depths of Hueco Mundo. It seemed that he wanted to report this. Rifa Toshi nodded and dragged his tired body away at full speed. Kuchiki Byakuya also ran away when he saw that Stonehead was in trouble. The most important thing right now was to report to Soul Society. Only Zaraki Kenpachi and Unohana Retsu could continue fighting. Run. You want to run in front of me. No matter how ignorant you are, you should know when to stop. Your stupidity is giving me a headache. Inside the giant flower ball, there was a disdainful laughter. Then, 6 black iron rods shot out from the flower ball and were inserted in 6 different directions. Dustless shouted from within the cherry blossom blade. 6 crimson suns formation. A transparent barrier covered the sky and the earth, and a hexagonal barrier floated out of the water. The surroundings were airtight, and Jushira Yukitake and the others were sealed within. Seeing this, Fu Zhu and the other captains' faces fell. Back in the Soul Society, Dustless had used this trick to stop Suozhen from escaping from the Soul Society. Even though it was as thin as a cicada's wing, its hardness was still vivid in their minds. It seems that only by killing him will this barrier be automatically removed, Shumu Baya said in a deep voice, his cold eyes filled with killing intent. Nishineya Toshiro was no exception. Even though he was already a hidden encyclopedia, he still chose hundreds of thousands of copies. It was impossible for him to just sit around and wait for death. Once we go, bang. 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 Before he could finish his sentence, Shumu Baya suffered a heavy blow. His body shook and swayed until he finally fell to the ground. Damn expressionless man, your opponent is me. Candace appeared like a ghost and ruthlessly kicked Shumu Baya to the ground. At the same time, Bambi Ida attacked Nishineya Toshiro. Even though the ability of the two girls was extracted from the sacred script, Dustless had trained them for so many years, and their combat power was still not bad. Seeing Candace and Bambi Ida, Yucatec could no longer calm down. His eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. As a Shinigami, he actually colluded with Quincher. He was even more hateful than Aizen Sosuke. Ayaya, who are you trying to scare with that look of yours? Dustless asked calmly. He was very casual, and immediately took out a star badge. The moment the fiery red halo appeared, it attracted Yucatec's attention. Not only him, but all the captains were the same. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the sky full of petals attacked Dustless at the same time. Thousands of blades attacked him at the same time. Bang! 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 Intense spiritual pressure erupted from the inside of the cherry blossoms, and the repulsive force blew the falling petals to the sky. Dustless was perfectly fine inside. You want to deal with me with just embroidered pillows? Buzz buzz buzz, the star badge in his hand exuded a destructive throbbing. Looking closely, crimson flames shot out from it. Feeling the special spiritual pressure fluctuation, all the captains' faces changed greatly. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, who was fighting Unohana Retsu, was dumbfounded. This blazing spiritual pressure was unique to Ryujin Jaka. Why is the Captain Sanpakudo in your hands? Yucatec gritted his teeth and asked coldly. He was shocked and angry. He had already vaguely guessed something, and a majestic murderous intent erupted from his body. Seeing this, Dustless was too lazy to deny and directly admitted, yes, as you imagined, the real culprit who killed Yamamoto is actually me. Of course, I just borrowed Aizen Sosuke's hands. Hearing this, all the captains were dumbstruck as they looked at Wu Qin. They were dumbstruck. Just how many outrageous things had this bastard done? Yucatec's worldview collapsed directly. If he guessed correctly, Aizen Sosuke was just a chess piece Dustless used to take away the Captain Sanpakudo. Chapter 1205. Dustless didn't try to hide anything. The truth was already out in the open. The Ryujin Jaka in his hand explained everything. There was no need for further explanation. The head captain treated you well. Why did you kill him? The head captain has protected the justice of Soul Society for thousands of years. Biting his teeth, Nishineya Toshiro clenched his fist and asked. Treated me well. I don't know why he treated me so well. He made me a captain so that he could use my power. You captains are really pitiful. Before the Godii 13 was formed, it was just an assassin group. There's no such thing as justice. Dustless was speechless. He hated this kind of question the most. Kill him, Bombiata. Dustless ordered softly. He glanced at Nishineya Toshiro and shifted his gaze to Yucatec Jushiro. Bambi Itama grinned and immediately attacked Higashiya Toshiro with a smirk on his face. How did you know that I have the right arm of the Soul King in my body? Forcibly suppressing his shock and anger, Yukitake Jushiro asked in a hoarse voice with a touch of coldness. Something is wrong. At this moment, Dustless noticed Yukitate Jushiro's abnormality. His body was wrapped with strange black runes, looking quite mysterious and sacred. What Dustless was most concerned about was that this mysterious black power was left on the ground in a liquid form. He suddenly remembered that the Soul King's power absorbed by the Soul King Palace was of the same origin as the power overflowing from Yukitate Jushiro's body. Is this the power of the Soul King's right arm hidden in your body? Dustless was indifferent. He instantly understood Yukitate Jushiro's intention. He immediately sneered, "You want to use the power of the Soul King to deal with me? Too naive, Yukitate. As a Soul King, do you think I will be defeated by these scattered powers?" Dustless snorted. His current identity was a Soul King. These powers wouldn't hurt him. How is this possible? The Black Soul King's flow avoided Dustless's body. It didn't even attack Daishu beside him. Even Quincy didn't attack. It attacked. How is this possible? I clearly released the power of the Spirit King's right arm to attack the few of you. How could? The surging power of the Spirit King could only endlessly chase after the Grim Reaper. Whether it was Uno Hanaretsu, Rifanya East Shiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, or Byakuya, the Spirit King Torrent was only chasing after the Grim Reaper. On the other hand, Dustless and Hellable, as well as Candace and Bambietta, who were Quincy, were all fine and were completely ignored by the Psionic King Torrent. Jia, eerie laughter came from Dustless's throat. That eerie laughter made people feel as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Hearing that laughter, the dark clouds in Yukitate Jushiro's heart became even denser. It seems that you should know what the reason is. Fujitake Jushiro questioned as his gaze fell on Wuchin. He had released the power of the great deity One-Eyed, Spirit King's right arm. His goal was to deal with Dustless. This was also his only trump card. But who would have thought that the Spirit King Torrent would only fight the Death God? Yukitate Jushiro. You are really smart all your life, but stupid this time. Do you still need me to say such a simple question? Glancing at the sluggish Yukitate Jushiro with contempt, Dustless sneered. It seems that I don't need to do anything. Byakuya and the others will be crushed by the Spirit King Torrent. Candace, tell him why the Spirit King Torrent is chasing after the Grim Reaper and ignoring us. Dustless ordered Candace to perfunctorily answer Yukitate Jushiro, while he looked at the captains who were being chased by the Spirit King Torrent with interest. The greatest enemy of the Spirit King is not Quincy or Hollow, but you, the Grim Reaper. His words made Yukitate Jushiro feel as if he was struck by lightning. His eyes were dim and blank, and he immediately refuted fiercely. Impossible, One-Eyed, Spirit King's right arm, great deity would not be so. I have already told you before that the Godii 13 was an assassin group 1,000 years ago. They can do anything. Don't think that the Godii 13 is so honorable. I can tell you clearly that the current Spirit King Torrent is the Spirit King's revenge against the Grim Reaper. Dustless recalled that Yawatch once said that the person who sealed the Spirit King was the Grim Reaper of the Soul Society. It was normal for him to vent his dissatisfaction. You can't control the power of the Spirit King's right arm, so leave it to me. Dustless leaned on Yukitate Jushiro with shining eyes. As for the captains, they would be crushed into pieces by the Spirit King Torrent sooner or later. Pucci. With a sneer, he tore the clothes in front of him, revealing a pitch-black pearl. An even denser Spirit King Torrent slowly overflowed from its master. Like Yukitate Jushiro, the Spirit King Torrent's power was also uncontrollably chasing after the Grim Reaper. Let me deal with you first. Dustless secretly decided. He forcibly reversed the Spirit King Torrent's trajectory and controlled it to rush towards Yukitate Jushiro. Hateful, Yukitate Jushiro's face was ashen. He was shocked to find that his body was melting like ice. It was gradually being dissolved by the same Spirit King torrent, and his body slowly disappeared. What this meant was self-evident. Dustless also had the Spirit King torrent in his body, and it was much denser than Yucatec Jusharu's. It was so dense that it could easily devour him. After a while, Yucatec Jusharu's body gradually collapsed, turning into a pool of dark Spirit King torrent. It immediately retreated back into the black ball in Dustless's chest. Hee hee. After devouring Yucatec Jusharu, my power has indeed increased. The next task is the Spirit King's left arm and the heart of the Spirit King. Chapter 1206. Dustless chuckled, his killing intent surging. Every bit of his strength was built on the lives of others, just like Yucatec Jusharu, who was directly devoured by the sphere inside his body. Without any power to retaliate, he was mercilessly crushed like an ant. This thing is really dangerous. Unohana Retsu retreated to Dustless's side and patted her chest in relief. She was also stunned by the power of the Soul King. Without a doubt, she had always thought that the Soul King was the guardian of the Death God. She never thought that it would only attack the Death God. Even the Death God's natural enemy, Hollow, was left to the side. This is also the reason why Yawatch hates the Death God. The existence of the Soul King is a disgrace to him, so he did not hesitate to fight the Death God until he destroyed it. Unohana Retsu nodded in agreement. Putting herself in the Death God's shoes, if she was chopped into a human stick for no reason, she would also be furious and want to destroy the other party. Let's go. They are fated to be crushed by the Soul King avalanche. I don't need to control it, this is the will of the Soul King himself. Dustless was very calm after telling the girls that there was no need to chase. In any case, the surroundings were already sealed by the 6 Crimson Yang formation, so these captains had nowhere to run. They could only be consumed by Hollow. But then again, this Soul King avalanche is really not ordinary. Unohana Retsu's eyes flashed as she sighed. The attacks of these captains were completely useless against the Soul King avalanche. Any attack would be crushed in the end. It was as if it was limitless. Even if I die, I will drag you all down with me. Unable to bear the burden, Nishiya Tashiro's face revealed an ominous glint as he glared at Dustless and the girls beside him like a dying beast. Ayaya, Captain Nishiya, the Death God is loyal to the Soul King. What's wrong with asking you to die for him? Wuchen asked with a smile and a teasing tone, I'm your Lord Spirit King now. Can't you die for me? You keep saying that you are loyal to me. Don't talk nonsense. Rifana roared. His emerald eyes emitted a cold light, and the spiritual pressure in his body erupted. He was going to fight to the death. Are you going to defuse it? Seeing this, Dustless smirked and took out a special star badge. Just as he was about to throw it to Candace and Bambietta, the cherry blossoms that filled the sky attacked. Get out of the way. That's Kumubaya's Sanpakuto ability. It's very dangerous. Those cherry blossoms are blades. Uno Hualai shouted as she retreated in a flash, creating some distance between herself and the cherry blossoms in the sky. The only one who stood still was Dustless. Looks like it has backfired. These guys have been driven to desperation. Unohana Retsu said darkly. Tashiro, Zaraki Kenpachi, and Byakuya seemed to have realized that their time was up. They all charged at Dustless at the same time. Caw caw caw. The cherry blossoms in the sky cut Dustless's body, but there was no substantial progress. The effect was so small that it was negligible. Dustless just stood there quietly, but the cherry blossom's blades could not hurt him at all. What ability is that? Byakuya said with an ugly expression. Dustless was silently mocking him. You guys, looking down at Byakuya and the others, Dustless's eyes were as cold as knives. Boom boom boom. Strong vibrations erupted from Dustless's body. It was as terrifying as a flash flood. The ground trembled as cracks extended in all directions. The scene was extremely shocking. Not only the ground, the sky, and even the entire Hueco Mundo were shaking violently. What kind of move is so terrifying? Byakuya and the others exclaimed. Especially Byakuya, who was the most conflicted. Our moves are ineffective against him. He can block them with his strange ability. Ability? Hearing this, Dustless sneered and shook his head. I didn't use any ability. This is the strength of my Spirit King Devour. Your attacks won't have any effect on me. Impossible. Toshiro Hifanya and Byakuya roared at the same time. They ignored the erosion of the Spirit King collapse and used all their strength to erupt the last of their spiritual pressure. It looks like you're going to release it. Seeing this, Dustless took out 2 special star badges and handed them to Candace and Bambietta. Thank you, young master. The 2 women were stunned for a moment before thanking him excitedly. They looked at each other and naturally knew what Dustless meant. They hurriedly stepped in front of Byakuya and Toshiro Hifanya. They raised the special star badges towards the 2. Although Byakuya and Toshiro Hifanya were puzzled, they still decisively released their Zanpakuto. Bankai, Senbenzakura Kageyoshi. Bankai, Daiguren Hairinmaru. A majestic spiritual pressure overflowed from his body and continued to erupt. When Zanpakuto was about to completely release his true form, the rising spiritual pressure stopped erupting. Zanpakuto seemed to be dead, without the slightest reaction. On the other hand, the star badges in the hands of Candace and Bambietta were shining brightly. The 2 colors, one blue and one pink, were particularly eye-catching. That is, seeing this, Toshiro Hifanya and Byakuya felt as if they were struck by lightning, their minds stagnated, and they exclaimed at the same time. My Hairinmaru, Senbenzakura Kageyoshi. Looking at Hyphen Valley's Toshiro and Keiki Byakuya's old faces, Wuchen felt an indescribable comfort in his heart. In the past, these annoying cockroaches used to go against him every day. Now that he had killed them and even took away their Bankai, there was nothing else to be happy about. Candace, Bambietta, their last value has been squeezed out. Now, they are all annihilated. Chapter 1207. His cold and despairing voice gave everyone goosebumps. His cold and emotionless eyes were isolated from the rest of the world and did not contain any human emotions. He was like a god looking down on thousands of mortals. Ha ha ha. Don't forget about me. The violet Ryatsu swept the world, the golden light hit the barrier, and the deadly pressure spread. Everyone looked at the initiator in horror. Ha ha ha, you bastards, get out of my way. Using all the strength in his body, he burst out with unparalleled combat power for a short time, and even the Spirit King flowing around Zaraki stopped flowing. The golden Ryatsu erupted from his body, and it turned into a solid skeleton, protecting Zaraki from being eroded. Ayaya, it sounds impressive. Dustless stared at the skeletons covering Zaraki's body with interest and praised. But, the smile on his face suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by endless haze. Dustless said coldly, 2 Kanfas are absolutely not allowed in the same era, so... Go to hell, Captain Zaraki. After that, Dustless began to burst out more majestic Ryatsu from his body, and the seal of the 6 Crimson Yang formation cracked. Hado number 88, Flying Dragon Strikes Thief. Extremely thick light beams gushed out, mincing the void space that they passed by, leaving behind obvious cracks. In particular, the piercing sound of the light beams moving at light speed caused one's ears to tremble. Nishiya Toshiro's ears were bleeding, and his eardrums were directly shattered. Gulp. Kukimubaya's iceberg face was full of shock, and he was stunned for a moment. The so-called number 88 Hado, or, after Dustless made the number 88 Hado, its power had undergone a new dimensional change, and it was even more ferocious than the number 96 Hado cremation. Boom boom boom. The light that blotted out the sky was coming toward him, and Zaraki instinctively smelled the smell of death, but his beastly character still urged him to go to the end. Holding the sword with both hands, he raised it high, and a huge golden sword pressure gathered on the Zanpakuto. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His hands fell to the ground, and Zaraki used all his strength to throw out a slash, trying to tear apart the oncoming cold light. However, his wish was ultimately going to fail. Poochie. The moment the two rays of light collided, Zaraki's slash instantly collapsed, annihilating it and sweeping towards Zaraki in an unprecedented manner. Swish. Swish. The light soared into the sky, as if it wanted to destroy the entire world. As for Zaraki Kenpachi's figure, he had completely disappeared. His spiritual pressure, his body, and his Zanpakuto had all disappeared. They were directly evaporated by the blazing temperature of the 88th Hado. Boom boom boom. A violent explosion resounded through the clouds, and there were actually many fragments falling down. Looking up, the 6 Crimson Yang array had actually been destroyed. Ayaya, I didn't control my strength. This is going to be bad. Dustless said apologetically, causing Unohua and the others to roll their eyes. Retreat, Captain Hifanu. Keiki Baya roared and hurriedly urged the dazed Nissan Toshiro. His entire body transformed into a flash of light and disappeared without a trace. Whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, the two disappeared, escaping from the 6 Crimson Yang array through the gap created by Dustless. After devouring the power of Psionic King, the technique of controlling strength seems to have become a lot worse. Dustless whispered to himself, and his sight pierced through thousands of miles in an instant, and the two escaping frantically immediately became close to him. Spiritual technique, Bright God Gate. The mahogany that fell from the sky smashed the two of them into smithereens in that short period of time. Their bodies were badly mutilated. Time passed, and dozens of days passed in a flash. Of the captains who rushed to Hueco Mundo, other than Unohuaretsu who accidentally survived, all the other captains had died. This terrible news caused the entire Soul Society to tremble. And the main culprit, the best scapegoat, was naturally Sosuke Aizen. Dustless and Unohuaretsu had colluded together, and Aizen, who was far away in Lost Nose Palace and knew nothing about it, became the scapegoat for Dustless. Head Captain, we should immediately attack Hueco Mundo. If this continues, we will be left alone sooner or later. Shunsui said with red eyes. Yukitake Jushiro's death in Hueco Mundo was a great blow to him. Kiki. If you guys knew that I was the Black Hand, would you turn me into ashes? Dustless smacked his lips and thought to himself. At this moment, the captains were united, and everyone was filled with anger. Their hatred for Sosuke Aizen had reached an unprecedented level. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but feel sorry for Sosuke Aizen. Everyone, Sosuke Aizen naturally needs to be dealt with. The hatred of the captains must be washed away with Sosuke Aizen's blood. Head Captain, to us, faced with such a perfect situation, Dustless immediately used the Great Deception technique. Sosuke Aizen was definitely going to be beaten, but there was still Yawatch hiding in the dark that needed to be dealt with. Dustless knew everything about Sosuke Aizen, but he only knew a few words about Yawatch. Even after becoming a Soul King, he knew very little about Yawatch. Head Captain, something big happened in the modern realm. At this moment, a Xing soldier in black suddenly knelt on one knee, looking very nervous and panting like a cow. Dustless frowned. Stand up. Is Sosuke Aizen attacking the modern realm? Chapter 1208. Hearing Dustless's words, the group of captains all exchanged glances, their faces revealing indignant expressions. Humph. Preposterous. That Aizen Sosuke was too daring. Have they become so arrogant and unbridled? He just killed several captains of Soul Society and now he dares to attack the modern world. Sui Feng, the captain of the 2nd Division, said angrily. She might be small, but her temper was not to be underestimated. The blue spiritual pressure in her body erupted uncontrollably, almost causing the poor Xing soldier to faint. No, Shinozaki Ichigo from the modern world just sent a message. One of their teammates, the girl called Orihime Inoue, was captured by Aizen Sanosuke's men. The Xing army member who was under the pressure quickly reported, afraid that Sui Fan would accidentally use her spiritual pressure to crush him. Okay, you can go now. Wuchen glanced at the Xing soldier and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to speak, someone else spoke first. Orihime Inoue. The woman with Shinozaki Ichigo. She seems like an ordinary human. Orihime Inoue has a healing ability and is quite powerful. I heard that she's not inferior to Captain Unohana. It's natural that Aizen Sanosuke values her. Damn it, we can't let Aizen Sanosuke get Orihime Inoue. Otherwise, we'll be in even more danger. Aizen Sanosuke is already invincible. If he has an invincible healing ability, we won't be able to do anything. Wuchen silently listened to the group of captains' discussion, and he couldn't help but wail. This group of idiots were not suitable to be subordinates. Looking around, there were originally more than a dozen captains, but now there were only a few people left. Those who died were cheated to death, and those who defected had defected. After counting, only a few people were left. It's just a small healing ability, why would Aizen Sanosuke care about it? This is clearly a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain, you brainless idiots. Dustless snorted in his heart, full of disdain for these self-righteous captains. However, Sosuke Aizen has made his move. It seems that the final battle is near. Rolling his eyes, Dustless's pupils pulsed with a crimson blood light. It was extremely terrifying. There was no need to stay in this world any longer. He had already obtained the Spirit King's power. Other than the few subordinates of Yawatch that he had yet to devour, he had gotten everything he wanted. Naturally, Dustless would not stay and waste his time. Since you've chosen to die, then I'll grant you your wish. After all, we're all colleagues, so I'll save you the trouble of making things difficult for me before you even arrive in hell. Dustless sneered in his heart. His face was full of righteousness as he spoke with passion. Everyone, the day of war with Hueco Mundo is about to arrive. Everyone must be filled with confidence and defeat Sosuke Aizen, this evil man who has brought disaster to the world. Understood, head captain. The Shinigami captains all nodded and promised. Their faces were all red as they secretly cursed Aizen Sosuke. After being suppressed by Aizen Sosuke for so long, they already had resentment in their hearts. They had to vent it. Alright, that's all for today. You can all leave now. After a while, Dustless waved his hand and ended the meeting. His eyes were dim and he looked tired. You're too greedy, Chinkuen. In the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. She said seriously, if it wasn't for your unique body structure, I'm afraid that you would have exploded from the Spirit King's power. Dustless smiled bitterly. He could vaguely see dense blood seeping out of his chest. This was caused by the Spirit King's power. It instinctively repelled Dustless, or rather, repelled all Shinigami. It's okay. This kind of small injury is harmless to me. It won't have any effect. Wuchen gave him a comforting look and smiled brightly. His internal organs could be vaguely seen, and even his beating heart could be seen clearly. Everything was corroded by the Spirit King's power. If it wasn't for Dustless's tough little life, he would have died already. Are you really planning to fight with Aizen Sosuke? Uno Hanaretsu asked gently as she carefully wiped the blood off Dustless's back with a towel. It's about time to settle everything. Dustless nodded and did not hide anything. Those captains are fighting to be the first to die, so I'll fulfill their wish. Do they really think that Aizen Sosuke is easy to bully? So naive that I can't even bear to look at him. Oh, you. Looking at the unhappy Dustless, Uno Hanaretsu did not know whether to laugh or cry. She suddenly felt that her lover was sometimes very naughty and would throw a tantrum. Hee hee. Actually, I can't wait for those captains to all die. Those annoying flies buzzing around all day long. In reality, they can't even take a single hit from Aizen Sosuke. Now, they even dare to act like they're the boss. They deserve to die. Dustless suddenly changed his expression and explained with a smile. Although I don't know where Yawatch is hiding, at least one thing is for sure. He needs a large number of souls to recover. Therefore, when we fight with Aizen Sosuke, that old bastard will definitely not be able to hold himself back and come out to collect souls. After all, war is the fastest time for living things to die. Uno Hanaretsu looked at Dustless's sinister smile with a headache. Somehow, she could feel Yawatch's resentment. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.